Of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission to order. I'm Angie Box. I have the privilege of serving as the chairman for the commission. This time I'd like to welcome all of our guests and visitors to the Lanham Center at Dyersburg. We have a lot of people, so I will read a little bit faster than I normally do. Clarence and Laura Dye here. Thank y'all for being here. Dave Kostersky with DU, all the way from Canada. Glad you're here. Corey Highway, Tennessee Tech. Hi, Corey. Cole Howard, Tennessee Tech. Partner in crime. J.W. Worthen. J.W., hey. Chris Hearn. Thank you, sir. Mike Butler, Tennessee Wildlife Federation. Very back, okay. Matt Simcox and Taylor Martin, both from the Federation. Great, glad y'all are here. Curtis Brummels. Memphis? Bramlett. Glad you're here, thank you. Andy Demetrio, American Canoe Station. All right, glad you're here. Sue Cosmini. Great, glad you're here. Sandy Stacks with you. Hello. Courtney Archer. So we have Stella Barham, Craig Barham, Virginia Barham, Barron, Margaret Barron, Catherine, Jason Harper, Charlie Barron, Colette Barron. Yay, the whole family's here. Great. I'm glad y'all are here today. Brad Kaiser, Nancy Kaiser. Thank y'all. Tony Childress. Wonder who that could be. Glad you're here, sir. John Holden. Mayor Holden, thank you. Glad you're here. Thank y'all. Also want to recognize Tiffany Maxedon here, wife of the director of Maxedon. Okay, at this time, I'd like Ms. Danette, can you call the roll, please?
Jimmy Granberry.
Here.
Tommy Woods.
Here.
Monty Ballou.
Here.
Stan Butts.
Here.
Wally Childress.
Here.
Bill Cox.
Here.
Chris Devaney.
Here.
Chip Saltzman. Steve Jones.
Here.
Brian McLaren. Kent Woods.
Present.
Hank Wright.
Here.
Angie Box.
Here.
Madam Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Danette. At this time, I'd like to have a few announcements for everybody. I want to thank first and foremost Wally Childress and Tracy Childress for helping host our fish fry last night and all the folks in this week. I really appreciate what you've done this week, Wally, for hosting us. Thank you so much. And last night, we had incredible chefs for our fish fry. I want to name them as well. Mr. Tim Ridley, Chuck Sisson, Colonel Darren Ryder, and Lance Ryder, and Mr. Wade Hendren. Thank y'all so much for the food. It was delicious. Let's see. At this time, I'd like to move to call on Executive Director Maxedon.
Madam Chair, at this time, I'd like to recognize Dyersburg Mayor John Holden to come up and say a few words.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. And thank you, Ms. Box, for allowing me a little time. I just want to welcome each of you to Dyersburg, Tennessee. Some of you have been here before and some of you first-time visitors. We take very seriously and understand the importance of wildlife and hunting and fishing in our community. Very supportive of that, supportive of the folks here locally that you all know, but just want to welcome you to Dyersburg. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having your meeting here. And thank you for all you do for the state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here.
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm excited to be in my hometown of Dyersburg area and glad that we were able to come in town, and thank you for having the meeting here in January so that we can do a little bit of waterfowl hunting. So I'd like to thank a few folks that were gracious enough to host us. I want to thank you to the Kaiser family for hosting us in a duck blind. I also want to thank you to the Childress family for hosting us, and the Box and Luke Bryan for hosting us in one of their blinds. So thank you for being able to do that and host us while we're here. This is an exciting day for me. We've got a couple couple of great things that's going to happen on the agenda. One of my favorite things to do is to talk about waterfowl and ducks. So we're going to get to do that here at the beginning. But I have a couple of special things to recognize before we do that. Madam Chair, as you know, for the past several months, I've been using this time during the director's report to highlight success stories from a member of the public and also members of the staff. This month, I want to start with staff by sharing this picture. If y'all will pop that up, Mr. Don. This picture is of our District 11 officers, including Sergeant Ed Gover, retired Major Brian Thompson, Wildlife Officers Jake Yost, Jeff Peach, Christy Twilla, Tim Ward, and Boating Officer Terry Moore. These officers visited Le Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis, where they assisted Le Bonheur volunteer Gordon Stewart in dispensing hot beverages to the staff, parents, and patients throughout the hospital. Howard's Donuts graciously donated freshly made delicious donuts for this event. TWA provided coloring books and other goodies to the patients and staff, and it was the group's first visit to the hospital in a couple years due to the pandemic. We talk a lot about our wildlife officers being multifunctional because they do a lot of work as they go out in the field, as they come across a lot of our folks. It's not only law enforcement responsibilities to have, but we do a lot of efforts like this to be able to do outreach in the community. Our officers care about their communities and often find ways to go above and beyond to support people that they serve and they protect. So thank you to our officers for doing this event, and thank you for what you do every month and every day. Next, I'm very excited to present something new. Next is going to be a member of the public. So one of the perks, there's a few perks you get to be the director, and one of those is to get to start new things. So I reached out to Madam Chairman Box. I hope that we're having some technical difficulties with Zoom, but Joey Woodard, the executive director of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Foundation, I hope is on Zoom, reached out to the both of them and asked if we could work together to establish a new award for individuals who have overcome great obstacles in life and either start or continue hunting and fishing as they do this. So we're going to do this twice a year. This is going to be the inaugural presentation where we get to do this today. So Madam Chairman Box, do you mind coming up? If you'll come up now, and Commissioner Childers, if you'll come up, I'm going to read something and then we'll make some presentations. So today we have selected Virginia Barron. Virginia's here in the audience with her family. Virginia's here with us today with Father Craig Barron, grandparents, and her sisters. And I just saw where Miss Barron came in. Didn't see you come in, so glad to have you all today. In September of 2018, Virginia Barron was diagnosed with a rare neurological disease that resulted in full body paralysis. After 8 months in the hospital and countless surgeries, she was able to make a tremendous physical progress. She's been shooting for the past year with a Rossi 410 with a thumb hole stock that allows her to get a stronger grip on the gun. Her father helps support her elbow, but she can do everything else on her own. This April, after a couple of unsuccessful days, Virginia got her first turkey, and you can see the picture of this turkey that's up on the projector now. About an hour after sunrise, she said that she spotted a group of 6 jakes approaching their decoy, and once she got a clean shot, she dropped the turkey in its tracks. So congratulations, Virginia. We're proud that you were able to harvest your first turkey. Her sister also harvested her first deer, right, Craig? Her middle sister harvested her first deer here about a week ago. We want to recognize Virginia today for her hard work and to encourage her to continue getting outside and hunting. So we're proud to present Virginia with this first honorary award. Virginia, we're going to ask you to come forward. We're going to present you with a Henry 22 rifle, and we're going to present you with something very special. We had a Tennessee icon that wanted to give you something. So Bill Dance actually signed a hat and has got you a fishing pole. So Madam Chair, if you will present her with a fishing pole and the hat, and Commissioner Childers, if you'll present her with the rifle. Mr. Lee, you mind coming up and taking a picture? Y'all want to come up and get a picture of you all. Well, Junior, we're very proud of you. We're praying that the Lord will continue to bless you and you'll get many days out in the field. Thank you all for coming today. All right, so later on the agenda, I mentioned talking about ducks. We're going to have Dave Kostersky from Ducks Unlimited. He's joined us all the way from Canada. He's going to come up during the Wildlife Committee time. But before we get into that, I'd like to share a video that we've put together to show some of the work that's going on with our great partners and with Ducks Unlimited. So, Don, if y'all would roll the video, and Madam Chair, at the conclusion of the video, we'll be ready to start the meeting. We'll pass it back over to you to start Wildlife Committee. Thank you all.
It's all about the ducks. The relationship between the southern U.S., mid-continent U.S., and even the northern U.S. is that many of their ducks come from Canada. The last drought, mid to late 80s, really formalized North American Waterfowl Management Plan. It was that event that said we need to do something different continentally. State agencies saw this need, that the Canadian breeding grounds in particular were in risk of loss and risk of not being able to recover from this drought.
The waterfowl populations were going down and down and down. And if you let those populations get to a certain level, it's going to be almost impossible to get them recovered back to the days that I remember when I was a little kid. And I don't want ducks to go down the tubes on my watch. And a bunch of guys just like me in those high-level positions that didn't want to see ducks go out of the picture on their watch. And so we all wanted to do whatever we needed to do.
This really formalized around the early 1990s and the beginning of the North American Waterfowl Management Plan, when the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies said, we need to make this a formal process that we can raise dollars to match a new formal legislation called the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. The state grant program became this commitment by state agencies to provide matching dollars for this larger federal program coming out of the U.S.
Why would a state want to send money to Canada? It's hard-earned money, and yet there were crazy people who thought it could be done, it should be done, we have to do it, and we couldn't think of a better idea. So we ran with it.
It took many individuals, many governments, state, provincial, federal Canada, federal US, it took all these players to come on board and say, we need this to happen. This was a monumental task and is really recognized worldwide as one of the most successful conservation efforts in the world.
It was very hard, but it was worth it. I think the duck population would have continued to decline if we had not done this. And I think if we don't continue to do it, I think you'll still have problems that affect habitat across the continent. And so I think we've got to stay on top of doing what we're doing.
This program is about continental conservation of waterfowl. It's about our continent.
When we invest $1 and it gets to be $4, and before long that is matched somewhere else even greater, it's an investment into what we're doing in state. And if we don't have that investment, we get no return. If we had that same rate on any other investment we made, everybody would be on board. And so we want to continue that as long as we can.
Tennessee can't do it by themselves, and another state can't do it by themselves. But collectively, we see what we can do, as illustrated with the millions of acres that we've impacted. You get an airplane and you fly to Canada now, and you look down on the ground from 20,000 feet, and you can almost pick out the waterfowl habitats that have been developed, stair-stepping all the way up to Canada.
It's extremely important that we do our part in making sure that those lands are preserved and there are adequate places for birds to nest and to make that migration, so that it's an investment in the future.
state grant program is that first dollar that's made the magic of the North American Waterfowl Management Plan success in North America. That state dollar is the first one that gets leveraged more than once, more than twice, many times. It's that state dollar that really started the success of the North American Plan, putting money up into the breeding grounds in Canada. It's urgent today to make sure that we continue on this path, even during the wet times, because the next dry cycle will be around the corner.
This is really the only thing that we've done across the continent in North America to make a huge difference in habitat, in an ecosystem, I think. I just don't see anything else. We can do a lot for the future generations that want to enjoy the outdoors.
We can't go at it alone. Partnerships allow us to reach more acres and more people to make the largest possible impact. Working across state lines allows us to support waterfowl throughout their migration. It's the most effective way to ensure that we get the job done. TWRA is incredibly grateful to have strong partnerships with organizations like Ducks Unlimited. Not only are we a state agency investing in waterfowl habitat in Canada, but they are also investing in us. Here at home, Ducks Unlimited has invested nearly $17 million in wetlands conservation in Tennessee, allowing us to preserve nearly 49,000 acres of wetlands habitat. One of our goals is to ensure high-quality hunting and outdoor recreation opportunities for Tennesseans for many generations to come. I hope that my son and future grandchildren will have the same opportunities to enjoy these resources as I have had, which is why TWA will continue to do our part to protect that future for families across the state.
That was fantastic. I love that. Great job. That was wonderful. Thank you, Director Maxton. I want to remind everybody today's committee day, and we'll be hearing from Wildlife Committee, Fisheries, Retention, Recruitment, Budget, and Communications. And with that, I'm going to move to call on Chairman Jones with the Wildlife Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Wildlife Committee today is about waterfowl, and our first speaker is Dave Kostersky. Where are you? From Ducks Unlimited Canada. The guy we saw on the preview there, his celebrity. Better known as DU Dave.
There we go. Thank you, Chairman Box, Director Maxton, Commission for always being welcome to allow me to come and give updates from DU Canada. I think I'm DU Dave because my last name is kind of hard for Southerners to pronounce, which is fine. I have about 10 slides, and what I wanted to really focus on is the big picture. We talk about details, we talk about the ducks, and you'll get a really cool detailed talk right after me. But what I like to talk about is Ducks Unlimited really does think on a continental scale. This first slide is the theme of our current annual report that we put out each year, and we have a new theme every year. And this theme of pathways to sustainability is all about how do we make things last many generations after we're not here. And sustainability is about working collectively, whether it's with agriculture, with government, with industry, with all the partners across the landscape, the consumers, the hunters, the fishers, the bird watchers, all those folks. Sustainability is about making a future. Pathways to Sustainability is all about using our science as a guide to ensure that we're doing what's right. If we don't use sound science as an organization and as a partnership, we don't have a strong book or basis to work from. So our strength of our science is long been a hallmark of Ducks Unlimited and Ducks Unlimited Canada. We also, I've never shared this one before, but DU Canada is serious about being a good charity. We are part of Charity Intelligence. They review all of our work, and we rank in the top 100 charitable organizations in Canada for our quality of work, the sense of the dollar that gets into habitat, and overall as a quality charity. It's important to be measured against other charities and be a charity that's viewed as a stand-up organization. This is our current national acres, 12,329 habitat projects currently in our inventory, 6.2 million acres currently in our inventory. We're actually just going through something that we call acre harmonization. This is really confusing, but what it is Ducks Unlimited Canada, Ducks Unlimited in the US, and Ducks Unlimited Mexico all started as different companies. This past 2 years, I was involved in leading DU Canada along speaking the same language. And so now we are going to be able to speak to our board members and to our partners that when we talk about a conserved acre in Canada, it's the same definition as a conserved acre in the US. So it's a really important thing as a continental organization that everybody sees our information the same. So in that video that was shot a few years ago, I talked about state grants. Well, we have rebranded that program. It's now called Fall Flights. And one of the reasons we rebranded it is the whole name was State Grants for North American Waterfowl Management Plan Projects in Canada. That's what it used to be called. Well, Fall Flights is a lot easier for people to wrap their head around. And so we rebranded it under the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. And in fiscal year 22, 43 states across the southern US provided $3.8 million to breeding grounds conservation in Canada. I've got some real hot news off the press. I was just at the Western Association meeting, and I just got a commitment from the state of Washington and the state of Utah to join in. And so we are up to 47 states out of the lower 48 that will be participating in funding breeding grounds conservation in Canada this coming year. So super excited about getting it close. One of our goals was to get all 48 lower states, and I won't point out the one that isn't there yet. We'll get them. So our partnership with TWRA, the dollars provided by your agency and your hunters was $166,000 last year in FY22. Ducks Unlimited matches those funds. We use those matching funds to get other U.S. federal dollars from, I talked about it in the video, NACA, North American Wetlands Conservation Act. A tremendous piece of legislation created in 1991 that is the hallmark of the success of the North American Waterfowl Management Plan. A huge part of that, about 70% of it ends up being spent in the US, and about 30% of it, of the total NACA pot, gets spent in Canada and Mexico. The bulk of that being in Canada. And then there's an exchange gain. Your dollar is always stronger than ours, or almost always. And so when your dollar is stronger than ours, those US dollars get turned into Canadian dollars. So when we convert it to Canadian, that $166,000 that Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency invested turned into almost $800,000 in Canadian dollars to put on the ground. With that, we do a ton of work. These dots on the map on the left-hand side are all the projects that were completed in the province of Saskatchewan in 1 year with all the partner dollars, not just Tennessee dollars. Our budget for last fiscal year was about $28 million in Saskatchewan, and we accomplished all those projects scattered. Those polygons, or those kind of brownish areas, those are our priority or target areas where the highest waterfowl densities are. So what we do is we invest at least 75% of the dollars that we get entrusted to us in our highest priority areas, the areas that are going to get the greatest return on investment. The acres are all down on the right side. You can see thousands of acres accomplished, whether it's habitat protection, habitat restoration, or our ongoing management. As you guys know, you put a project on the ground, you don't walk away from it. Projects need management. They need people, they need resources, and they need time to provide that return. I just look at, you know how you have a bank account and you get interest, or you have an investment and you get an interest? Well, if you don't manage that investment, you don't get any interest or gain from it. That's how I see habitat. The return from that habitat is making sure we manage it properly so it can give you that return, or that interest, that gain in value. This is my almost last slide. I'm just going to take a little bit of time to talk about this one here. The reason I have this picture is I have a big concern. We have the North American Waterfowl Management Plan. That plan really pulled together for the first time organizations across private and government, across countries, a continent, to chase a dream of trying to protect wetlands across this continent for the future of everybody. Well, our challenge today is grasslands. We have to continue to do this with wetlands, but we need a new plan, and we need a path to sustainability on grasslands. I've been singing out of this songbook for a while, and we're working really hard to try to move something continentally, but we believe there needs to be a continental grassland plan. We really do. We have a cattle industry that's struggling across most of the continent due to challenges in being able to access land. The difficulty of keeping grass on the ground is also challenged by the perception that beef is bad. Beef is okay if it's grazed on grasslands that were meant to be grazed. Grasslands on our landscape. If we don't have a cattle industry and grasslands on our landscape, we don't have a commodity that keeps the grass there. If we don't have a cattle industry, there's no demand for grass. If there's no demand for grass, we won't have it. And we can do hundreds of thousands or even millions of acres of conservation. But the cattle industry keeps tens of millions of acres of grass on the landscape. And without that industry and the grassland future, we don't have the grasslands on this continent to further sustain all those populations, biodiversity. That includes all the bird species beyond waterfowl. So my big push and my interest is not only to keep a plan as successful as the North American plan going, but to elevate it and get the next step, which is about grasslands. We really need to do this collectively across this continent. Now, I always get asked this question, what are the habitat conditions in Canada? So this is the precipitation map from November 1st, which is basically our first snow. We get snow on the ground to stay where I live, kind of on eastern Saskatchewan there. We have snow on the ground 6 months of the year. Not an exciting thing at all. But this is the snowfall basically from November 1st to January 9th. So it's looking not bad. We're above average through much of the prairie pothole region. So that means we have a good start to having water in those wetlands this coming year. Some of those wetlands on the west side of Saskatchewan were really dry, so it's going to take not only a lot of snow, but a good melt and maybe even some rain in the spring to make it really fill up. But we're off to a good start. We've got probably where I live in Yorkton, 1.5 feet, close to 2 feet of snow. So that's a good start. But habitat conditions, I guess the message is we're in a good place, and hopefully we continue to get snow throughout the winter and a good melt. With that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to TWRA. Thank you to the staff, the waterfowl biologists in this agency. I've known a few through this agency. I've known a number of commissioners, and obviously I've known a few directors. And I can say that Tennessee stands up all the time to be a leader in this partnership and a leader in conservation, and just a great example to the other states and the rest of the country here in the US and the rest of the continent. So I want to thank you all for your partnership. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but I'm happy to answer any if there's any.
Are there any commissioners, not just committee members, but any commissioners that have any questions for Mr. Kostersky? Did I get that right?
You did it perfect.
Commissioner Wright?
Partnership. Many on the commission have, at their own expense, gone to Canada to see some of these projects in person. We have a fiduciary responsibility and also one to the resource. And so it's no surprise to everyone that our waterfowl that migrate here don't nest here. And if we don't preserve those wetlands and nesting areas, we won't have waterfowl. We'll run out of them. And so I'm just amazed at the science-based and the data-driven innovative approach you guys take to be efficient financially. And it's just a really successful campaign. And personally, I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Quick question on the previous slide. Showed snowfall, and on the right, it says less than 40 to 60. Is that inches per year?
No, that's percent of average. So
Okay.
this map is percent of average. It kind of says it on the top gray bar there. So we're ahead of average conditions for this time of year is what it's saying. The orangey kind of yellowy means they're below average, so they have less snow. Now I would say Manitoba was extremely wet last year, so they've got a lot of carryover water, so I wouldn't worry about Manitoba. But it's good news for Alberta and Saskatchewan. Yes, sir.
Enjoyed hunting with you this morning and yesterday as well. What are the 5-year goals? What do you see in the future for Ducks Unlimited? What are the immediate needs and funding, and do you see in the long range plan?
Absolutely. So Ducks Unlimited creates on about a 10-year cycle a continental plan. So we sit down with DU in the US and DU in Mexico, and we create this continental plan which sets out continental priorities. And in that process, what we did, in fact, our last time we ran through this, we did a return on investment strategy. So in looking at that return on investment, we saw that the outlook for habitat protection, in particular with conservation easements, was one of our top priorities in the prairie pothole region. So when you look at how best to get that future, land is only going up in cost, and using easements as a tool, it costs us about 30 to 40%, 40 cents on the dollar to get an easement versus owning it. And so using that to protect habitats that are at risk of loss is our number one priority. So we continue to do that. That's number one. Number two is to continue to find ways to restore wetlands. It's the hardest thing to do. I think I've explained this to other folks. It's like if you had a new car or a new truck, and someone came and said, and you're proud of this truck or this car that's, a field that's farmed corner to corner, don't have to go around nothing. And someone said, can I put a dent in your truck? It would be like putting that pothole back in the middle of the field is like putting a dent in their new truck. It's a tough thing to accept. Even if you probably have to buy the truck before they'd let you put a dent in it, right? And so what I find is wetland restoration is really, really hard. In fact, you have to pay more than market value to put a wetland back. You got to pay more than even buying that acre because it's in the middle. It makes it less efficient to farm around. But we have to find ways to work with landowners to provide the dollars and the benefits to them to put that wetland back. So I would say those are our two highest priorities: is getting easements to protect those high-risk habitats that we're losing, and then find new ways, innovative ways to get landowners to want to put wetlands back that have been lost.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and the partnership you have with us. You've been, 31 years with DU?
I have been, yes.
So that's a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate all the partnership with us and your hard work. It's important to protect our habitat. So thank you so much.
Chairman Box.
Anyone else? Thank you, DU Dave, for delivering the message again. And I think that this commission and certainly prior commissions have shown the value that they put in the preservation and the development of habitat for not just ducks, but all species. And I guess on a personal note, I've gotten to know you the last 4 years, even during the tough COVID years, and you have just done a tremendous job communicating the message and how we work together. And I just want to thank you personally for taking, for being in your role and taking the time to give us all the Canadian perspective and how we work together. And you've just done a phenomenal job. Are you going to jump? I was making my final comments.
I'll let Steve finish up. I was just sitting there thinking.
Yes, sir.
DU Dave. Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to let him have the grand finale. A man that's been with Ducks Unlimited for 31 years, you've got to have been able to hunt all over. If you had to pick one place to hunt again, where would it be? Because I want to go.
No pressure.
Pagoda.
I'm sorry. Pagoda's tremendous. Dyersburg. Just wait. But I got to say Saskatchewan. I'm sorry. The hunting in Saskatchewan is top notch. Won't get any better. But if I have to talk about somewhere in the south, I'll pick Dyersburg.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cameron.
Well, you already took care of it. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Again,
Come back and see us.
Tennessee's critical to us. Great partnership. Thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Brad Cohen. Oh, there he is. You're next.
You ready to rock and roll?
Yes, sir.
All right, I appreciate you all having me out here. It's a good excuse to get out of the office and a better excuse to go hunting a couple days. So thanks for the invite. I'll be honest with you. I try to come up here and give you guys like 5 to 10 minute highlight of the research that we're doing here in West Tennessee on mallards. And I try and be pithy and get the highlights out as quick as I can. But we're at the end of the 3-year field season mark here. And I got 3 students that are, a lack of humility here, I think doing awesome work. And so it's hard to be short and terse with you about all the highlights. So this one is going to be a summary of some of the stuff you've already seen. Some stuff, it might be new and it might go a little longer, but just stick with me. Hopefully you enjoy it. What are we doing? Well, for those that aren't familiar with the project, what we're doing is we're going around all the refuges in West Tennessee, both federal and state-owned refuges, and we're catching mallards. And what we do is we catch a mallard in 20 different types of traps, catch them, we put a band on them, we put a transmitter that is a GPS transmitter. It's a cell phone. Basically, it texts us the data, takes a GPS point, texts us the data. So they're up in Canada, we know where they are. They're down in Louisiana, we know where they are. It's unbelievable. And we let them go. Off they go, and we never see them again, hopefully. But for the first phase of the project, if you will, from 2019 to 2022, we caught 500 mallards. 40% of them were females, 66% were adults, so a pretty good sample. And the general questions were very simple. What are the ducks doing here in West Tennessee? Where are they going? Are we a stopover site and then they finish up their migration down to Louisiana, or are we the end all be all? We also looked at stuff like habitat availability and hunting pressure, but also in that matrix was the role of the state-owned and federally managed and owned refuges. And in order to do some of our stuff, I want to highlight one thing we did, which was really cool. We went out up in a plane and used that to actually look at water on the landscape. So every 2 weeks, my poor student, Nick Masto, I think he logged like something like 400 hours in a Cessna, like 2-person plane. We just flew over West Tennessee nonstop looking, where's water, where's habitat, where's the hunting pressure? And I'm telling you right now, that is a game changer if you want to understand how the world is perceived by a duck. So like, okay, that's Reelfoot Lake and that's so pretty and that's the winter and you know, that's how we see it. And then like right here, those are all the blinds. That's how a duck sees it. Start to put a little bit of, oh, that's a nice agricultural landscape with a little bit of water and a little bit. And that's how a duck sees it. Okay, you start to realize real quick that this is a risky place to be a duck. Something I haven't talked to you guys about, because I haven't had to yet, is we did all this research of looking at where ducks are going with GPS trackers. We have real-time assessments of the food. We have real-time assessments of the hunting pressure. The other thing we did was we put out these little boxes. They're called autonomous recording units. And basically what they are is they literally are just recording units. They record ambient sound out. We put them out for the entire hunting season. And what we do is we take that recording data back in the lab and we throw it through a computer program, and it looks like something like that. And what we're looking for are shotgun blasts. And so we can actually not just look at what ducks are moving and where ducks are going and where the food is, but we can actually assess hunter opportunity through shotgun blasts. Like we know every single day how many shots were fired in West Tennessee. Okay. That'll be important later. Just follow along with me. All right, so this is going to be repetitive, but more or less the thing you got to know is our ducks, when we catch them in Tennessee, and they don't leave to Louisiana. They don't go really across to Arkansas. 99% of all of our GPS locations, once they get to Tennessee, are in Tennessee. We are not a stopover site. We are the terminal end point for whatever waterfowl migration happens here. I love this map. There you go. That's every single GPS location from all of our ducks. That's our part of the flyway, folks. Now, what's interesting, and when we posted this on Facebook, got everybody pretty pissed off in Louisiana, is none of our ducks go any further south than really Alabama. And that's like 1 or 2. Now, I will say this. This is a colleague over in Louisiana. He's got a couple ducks transmitted, and We throw those over just for the Louisiana folks so they're not upset. And there's the Mississippi Flyway. You'll notice that we are a little bit on the, to no one's surprise, a little bit more on the eastern end of the Flyway. But there it is. That's where all of our ducks come from. Speaking of that, where our ducks come from, let me show you where our ducks go to breed. This is a heat map of where each one of all of our females went to breed. Now, let me remind you, this is over 3 years, okay? And during this time, this is the prairie pothole region outlined. And during this time, I hunt right next to Regina, so it's like kind of probably the middle part of the prairie potholes. It was the worst drought they've had in like 30, 40 years. So this is very dry in prairie pothole, Saskatchewan. In fact, like I haven't been able to hunt there the last 3 years because there's almost no water. But North Dakota, South Dakota were absolutely flush. So a lot of our ducks stopped there. But bottom line is all of our ducks are coming from the prairie pothole region for the most part. And here's them coming down. So they dispersed, we caught them in Tennessee. They dispersed all across the country, and here they come down. And all right, watch the first part. Just look at how they come in waves, waves, waves. Okay, now I'm going to tell you something. There's 2 different types of mallards. All right, this is observational. Now, this isn't, okay, I'm going off script. I think there's 2 different types of mallards. Like we have basically what I'll call our Halloween ducks. And those are the ducks that basically they decide it's like they get itchy around October and early November. And all of a sudden it's just time to migrate and they just haul and they come right here to Tennessee and they don't leave. They're done. And then you have the more traditional migrants, the ones that are being pushed down, pushed down. But even then, our ducks really don't want to be pushed any further south than they're already at by the time like early January rolls around. This is important as I tell the rest of the story. Oh, sorry. Let me back up. The key here is we also, all of our ducks come back generally to the region, and 1 in 4 of our ducks literally have overlapping GPS points to the exact spot we caught them in the next year. This is, most of our ducks kind of fly up, hang around the prairie potholes, but we do have ducks that do crazy things. Like this one flew all the way to the tundra with polar bears, then went over to like Edmonton and then flew right back. Literally, he's hanging out in White Lake Refuge right now. 7,600 miles to come right back home. All right, now I just told you they move a lot. Well, yeah, they fly long distances, but they stay relatively still. Our ducks during the winter have a home range size, or basically how much space they use. You can think of it as like what space they occupy during the winter. They use less space and move less than a deer or a turkey. So yeah, they can fly as far as you can imagine, and they simply don't. When you're looking there, all those different colors are literally like where, if you basically looked at that single duck, each color is a different duck. That's where they spent 95% of their time. And where they basically, what we call a quarry area, is about a square mile. So you get the point. You're familiar with this. Hold on one second. Let me see if this works. All right. These are 2 different ducks, and I just want you to see something. That's that range estimates, and here's what the ducks do. They hang out on a refuge, and then they basically go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and literally their entire winter is controlled and handled by 2 or 3 different property owners. And so when we look at our data, all 85% of our ducks at any moment in time during the first 3 years of our study were within 2.5 miles of a refuge area at any moment in time, which means that all that other blue that you're looking at in West Tennessee, which is definitely usable space for waterfowl, that's what that's meant to represent. Like that's the place a duck could be. 15% of our ducks are on all the rest of that blue. 85% are within 2.5 miles of our refuges. And then it should come as no surprise that about 70% of our ducks use only one refuge. And that is the same as whether we catch them that year or they come literally right back down. When they come back down from Canada, same probability. They use just one refuge. They have a home. I hope you're starting to see the picture here. And I think I've told you this before, but all the cool ducks get shot. You can't be a cool duck. Like, it was the most depressing thing about this study was like, you'd sit there when we first started to deploy GPS transmitters, you're like, that's a cool one. Because literally they're sending you their data real time. You're like, oh my God, this guy's finally doing what I think a duck should do. And then he's dead. Okay? It does not pay to be a cool duck or a neat duck. Boring is good. Boring is safe. Boring lets you live. All right, so again, then, if boring lets you live, it's no surprise that 60% of the time, ducks make 2 or less flights a day. And that flight should be, I'm flying from safety to food and food to safety. So basically what our ducks do is they fly over to food and wait to be kicked out by the hunters, and then they fly back to safety. What they don't do is fly at night. They don't turn nocturnal, which is surprising. Every hunter you talk to goes, oh yeah, we just turned the ducks nocturnal. No, you don't. They know the game. They just know where the safe spaces are, right? So they don't, only 5% of all of our flights occurred at night. They stay completely still at night. All right. I hope I've made the case that we have stale ducks because they have a lot of hunting pressure, and because they have a lot of hunting pressure, they choose to be very boring and move as little as possible. Well, then we shouldn't be surprised when we see something like this. There's the number of shotgun volleys, if you will. Like, that's the number of shots that are being taken in West Tennessee across the season. So that's from those recording units. I want you to notice something. First off, the best week as far as number of people shooting is the first week, basically. And after that, what is surprising to me is it is generally level. Sure, around Christmas time, you see, like, and our data supports this, we get a push of birds around Christmas every year. Okay, just around Christmas to New Year, we will get our last push of migrants down. And then basically it tapers off. That's relatively level. There aren't these, like, within a year, yeah, one day could be a banner day versus another one. But across time, basically after opening week, 50% less shots, and that's relatively steady. These ducks are stale. They're not moving, and it's reflected in our hunting opportunity data. All right. Let me see if this video wants to play before I make the grandiose change. So this is what our ducks do, and I hope it's as boring as as I think it is. All right, this is looking at them exploring. This is right before hunting season starts. They're up in private lands in Miston, and now hunting season starts, and I hope you just start to see what happened. Yeah. You get my point? I could play this for about 5 minutes of just the exact same things over and over and over. And the question is, these are ducks that you cannot kill because they know exactly what is safe and what is not. So can we change things up? We tried to change things up. One thing we did is as part of this project, something I haven't talked to you about, is that we did experimental disturbances on refuge. So we went and we rallied these birds. We did it 3 different ways. One was bringing out, just like walking around with binoculars, acting like we were birders. Another was driving a truck around and just moving the birds around. The other was literally ripping through them and getting them up. Let me show you what this looks like. Yeah, that seems like a pretty fun day. That I didn't get to do that. Okay, I was in the office, but my student got to do that. And so we rally them up. And you would think the whole idea is if you get these birds up and off of refuge, how many times have we heard this from hunters? If we could only get these birds off of the refuge, then we could kill them. Okay, so now keep in mind, we actually have the data. We have GPS transmitters so we can know if you kill them. And we have those recording units out so we can hear the number of shots. And we know exactly when we disturbed. All right. So what happens? Well, yeah, our movement increased right away. They're scared. They fly up and around. And then all of a sudden what they do is they get right back in that refuge and they stop moving. Movements decrease, refuge use increases. I compare it, I've been watching a lot, I have a 4-year-old kid, I've been watching a lot of Home Alone during Christmas time. I compare it to like when Kevin sees the first sign of the robbers kind of coming into the house. He runs into the bed and like hides under the covers. Like that's what these ducks are doing. You just came in and you scared me, and I'm not going to move, right? Like, this is my safe space. What's going on? I'm done. In fact, so only one of our ducks was ever killed after these disturbances, for what it was worth. And this is even crazier. After we disturbed, the same day of disturbance, the number of shots in that area decreased by 50%. So movements decreased and shots decreased. So the answer is not disturbing them. What you're doing is you're messing with them. And when you mess with them, they stay still. They don't all of a sudden like go, okay, I'm going to go jump into your decoys. Because they still know your decoys are fake. You see what I'm getting at? All right. And that's the disturbed issue, so you can see that. All right. Well, we got to get these ducks up and moving then. We can't get them up and moving by disturbing them. What if we just get them switching between refuges? Clearly, the bottom line is safe areas are important. Let's get them moving between safe areas. So we did a bunch of analyses to figure out like what factors could we do to move them between refuges. The only thing that matters is how close your refuges are to each other. And if they're not within about 10 miles of each other, they're not connected. All right, let me show you what that looks like for our landscape. All of these are actually connected by blue lines. The stronger the blue line means the more connected those refuges are with each other. In other words, the stronger the blue lines are, the more likely those are the same ducks. So for example, Hop-In, Manus, and Bean Switch, that area is very well connected, and those ducks are basically what you would consider the same ducks. Black Bayou and Reelfoot National Wildlife Refuge, those are the same ducks. But I hope you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. There's a lot of just isolated populations of ducks that are distinct from each other. They don't interact with each other. That's nothing. You have a bunch of little islands out there of safety and no connectivity, which means these ducks have no reason to switch between them or move. We on the same page? All right. So enter phase 2, which is what we're working on now. We're in the first year of this, and the idea is let's connect these suckers. The way we can connect them is by putting more rest areas, more what is actually limiting on the landscape on and actually connect the river tributary systems. Now, this is the ideal goal, is to kind of connect them with these kind of hop, it, skip things to bigger islands. And so far, we've put out 120 transmitters, 50% adults, not that that matters. And we're using drones to actually look. The drone is the coolest thing, by the way, but we use drones and we fly drones over the rest areas. These are rest areas that typically they just hold water. They didn't have any ducks. We have not a single GPS location on any of these areas prior to this study. That's important because I'm about to tell you that now that people aren't disturbing them, these are just private landowners where we go in and we say, hey, can you stop hunting the area? Can you stop disturbing the area? And all of a sudden we go from never having a GPS location on it to heavy use by ducks immediately after. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the same metrics. We're doing the same thing with ARUs. We're going to look at hunter opportunity. And yeah, this is what it looks like when you go over one of our rest areas. Where there were no ducks, there are now ducks. And hopefully that leads into something like people being able to shoot more ducks, or at least a more ubiquitous distribution of ducks and a more fair distribution of ducks. All right. Take a breath. Let me just finish up with this. Jason, I think you're going to like this. Jason told me, yeah, Director Maxton said, when we first started, yeah, your first year, they didn't go down into Arkansas or further down, but it was a warm year. You just wait till we get a good cold freeze. 3 days, I think, was what, 4 days. 4 days. On the fifth day, they're gone. Well, we had that deep freeze like a couple weeks ago, and I was just interested what happened with our ducks. We had at least 120 in West Tennessee at that time, and of those, I will say that a lot of them committed suicide and jumped into people's decoys. 21 were killed in a week, which is equal to almost like the entire amount of ducks that we have killed in a season. So they were moving and using different areas, a lot riskier areas. But what they were not doing, at least in this case, was flying further south. They still didn't fly south, even though everything was locked up. Only 7 of 120 did that. And for what it's worth, the second everything cleared up, 2 of them are right back where they started, same refuge. Here's part of the reason why this is our drone. This is one of the areas. This is what the ducks are doing. Even in that deep freeze, they can keep water open. And so, yeah, that's why they're staying put. All right, with that, I just get to come up here and tell you again that stuff that my students actually do the great work on. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Yes. Making scientific data entertaining is a hard task, but you do a great job as always.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Of any commissioners, not just committee members, but any commissioners that have our favorite duck commissioner, Commissioner Blue, would like to ask a question.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you as well. This is unbelievably interesting and so fascinating and just really good material to a duck hunter.
Appreciate it.
One, number two, I was talking to not DUI, I think, DU Dave. DU Dave, I said that this morning, but DU Dave, and we were talking about where our dollars go. DU Dave, where'd you go? DU Dave, so looking at that data that they have derived, are our dollars that Tennessee is putting to DU, are they going like Commissioner Cox and I were talking to you about earlier, or are we spending those dollars in the right area according to that data of where our ducks are going to?
Before he answers, let me throw something out here. I will say this. There's two different things there that I want to touch on because I knew he was here. I want to just touch on two things that I didn't give detail on that you got to understand on the front end before he answers. That is a representation of a short number of years during a serious drought in the Canadian prairies. Like even if I don't want to cut whatever you're going to say, but even if he said no, I would hesitate to even say that's right because I don't necessarily, give me another 3 years and let there be a flush amount of water in the Canadian prairies and let's see where that lies out. And that could give you a more accurate answer. I didn't mean to take the thing from you, but go ahead. So I think you're good.
All right. You can hear me? So I would say it's very interesting data to see how the birds are going back and forth. And GPS level data is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. What I saw from that data is certainly you have a flyway and you have birds moving up and down the flyway and they will stop where they see water. And so what we've seen over the last 3 years is they stopped when they saw water in the Dakotas, and that's what they're doing. So from a return on investment, I would say your dollars should be going where your birds are going. I think there's a couple other factors that do play into it. One of them is how much habitat is there and how much at risk is it? What is the other resources that are being put into each area? It's not just Tennessee, as I indicated. There's going to be 47 states, plus federal governments, plus provincial governments, all investing in the continental restoration of waterfowl. So I think you're investing your dollars in a good place. Would you want to partner with North Dakota? Why wouldn't you want to consider it? But I would like you to look at longer data sets than 3 years. And I think looking at the data as you continue to gather it, it'll show you a picture. I'll give you one more thing. We ran, so I had that map with all the dots on it in the priority areas. We have that map. That's based on wetland densities. And so we've run that map annually to show how it changes each year, where the water is and what area is going to be more productive. And you'd be amazed how much it jumps around. It's a year to year to year thing where it's wet, you're going to raise ducks. The last thing they'll say is wetlands don't migrate. They are where they are. There's roughly 3 million wetlands in the prairie pothole region of North America. 2 million of them are in Canada, 1 million are in the US. That's where they are. So if you want to keep the wetlands to restore populations to historic populations, you're going to have to invest where the wetlands are. Make sense? Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Butts.
For the next 3 years, briefly, just give us an idea of what your plans are for the research going forward.
Yeah. So for the next 3 years, what we're doing is we're basically working with private landowners to incentivize them to put pieces of their land into complete non-disturbance free rest areas. Concurrently, we're putting GPS transmitters out and doing almost a very similar study to what we did before. GPS transmitters, habitat availability, and acoustic recording units. And we're basically going to implement those contracts with private landowners in 3-year intervals. So they'll have 3 years of disturbance-free water along these river tributaries. And we're just hoping to basically it's like perfect as a scientist, a pre and post implementation. Like, does the implementation of rest areas change waterfowl movement, waterfowl survival, and hopefully hunting opportunity, which is what I think is probably most palatable to all of us as hunters, is are we seeing more shotgun blasts? Now, right now, this year, yeah, sure, it's been a great hunting year. Give us a couple more years of data and hopefully we'll see if this trend keeps going. But we've been really pleasantly surprised of how well received this has been amongst all of our cooperators, and how the private adjoining landowners have seemed to be pleasantly happy with the results as well.
Well, do you see any difference in the distance? Like you mentioned, 10 miles is about as far as they go. Are you planning on safe areas, a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles?
That's a great question, because most of our flights are within 2.5 miles of a refuge. What we're trying to do is put them basically stepped 2.5 miles away from each other. So every 2.5 miles up the river tributary systems.
So early on, is the indication is that they're utilizing those?
We're certainly having a good number of GPS marked transmitter birds using them, whereas we have had absolutely 0 locations in that area beforehand.
So with that being said, then success rate for hunters should be, if they're in between those rest areas, then it should be improving.
I hope so.
So you need more transmitters?
No, we're good. We'll get you the answers you need with what you've funded.
Can you tell where the ducks in the new refuges are coming from?
Yes, sir, we can. We put a lot. Give me another year or so to better answer that question. But we put a lot of transmitters out at White Lake this year, so a lot of our all of our rest area use has been from birds from White Lake for the most part. They're connected to Chickasaw a little bit, and also to Lake Isom. They have a little more connectivity than a lot of the others.
Commissioner Granberry.
Yeah, Brett, thank you so much for the information. The technology that we're seeing today compared to years past, and everything we do is just really phenomenal. What's the cost of these transmitters? What's the life expectancy?
Yeah.
And what do you do for the hunters as far as the reward if they shoot a duck with the transmitter on it?
Yeah.
Incentivize to give that equipment back to you.
So each one is about $1,500. So we're not talking about a cheap piece of equipment. Like, that's a valuable duck. And so every single one that is shot, if it's recoverable at all, and these transmitters, we expect, if they don't get shot and broken, we hope that they last about 1.5 to 2 years. That's optimal. So we can get 2 years of data. Now, some we have 3 going on 4 years of data for some ducks, and we get 2 weeks of data for other ducks, just by chance. But if a hunter harvests one and we can reclaim it, we'll give them a replica transmitter, looks exactly like the one they just shot, just without the guts in it. And then we redeploy that. We also give them a GPS map of every GPS location we have for that duck for them to use. We give them a special purple band that's special to the project, and all of our ducks get, and we usually give that out to everyone in the blind. So we try and incentivize getting those units back. On average, our GPS transmitters are deployed on 2 ducks each.
We would love to see you do. I don't know how far north you go, but we would love to see around the Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge or Duck River, and I would love to see some more accurate data from ducks up there.
At some point, maybe even during the break, but we have been fortunate enough we work really closely now with the company that makes these GPS units. Every once in a while, they throw us a transmitter of, so we've got a handful of ones that have had to be replaced or something like that. And so we've put out at this point maybe 15 GPS units at Tennessee National. I'm happy to talk more about it. Unfortunately, they're just, I hate the word boring, but they're just as boring as the ducks here, right? They basically just switch between eating on our public lands and then going to the refuge when it's safe. Like, you can literally see on the minute when boats start to crest into Big Sandy, but yeah, we do have a couple. I'm happy to share it.
Anybody else? Brad, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
Always do a great job. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
we'll see how many other presentations get an ovation.
Start keeping score.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. At this time, we're going to take about a 15-minute break. So I'll be back here at 2:25.
White-tailed deer were a rare sight in Tennessee when the TWRA was founded in 1948. Today, we estimate our deer population at nearly 1.6 million. But they face a growing and significant threat, chronic wasting disease. Currently, there is no cure for CWD, and the disease is 100% fatal for the animal, which threatens both the health of our wildlife populations and the opportunities available for hunters. Management of CWD is complex and requires numerous long-term techniques to be applied, monitored, and adjusted over time, which is why TWRA is implementing a new 5-year CWD response and management plan. The plan includes 5 main overarching goals. Number 1, prevent the introduction or spread of CWD to new areas. Number 2, surveillance and monitoring to improve early detection of the disease and better track the number and location of cases. Number 3, activate management and responses to minimize the impacts of CWD where the disease has been detected and proactively respond to any new cases. Number 4, more research to optimize all of TWRA's CWD programs. And finally, number 5, outreach and communications to ensure the public and our hunters have the information they need about CWD. This new CWD response and management plan will serve as a guiding document for TWRA staff and ensure the best science is applied to our efforts to control the disease. And we want to have a whole of government approach. That's why we created this plan with the help of the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, with additional input from a wide range of stakeholders over an 18-month process. Research on animal health diseases, including CWD, is constantly evolving, so the agency plans to remain flexible and adaptable in our response plans so white-tailed deer remain an important feature of Tennessee's landscape and culture. Our hunters have an important role in helping manage CWD, and we want to hear from you. The CWD Response and Management Plan will be available for public comment this winter, and the agency will host a public meeting for an in-person opportunity to discuss the plan with our biologists. Together, we can control the spread of CWD in Tennessee. For more information on CWD hunting regulations and incentives, visit cwdintennessee.com.
We'll go grabbling.
Been doing this about 6 years. Unfortunately, I didn't start it till I was about 50 years old. And a young man by the name of Dustin Buttram teased me into doing it and convinced me to do it one day, and I've been hooked ever since.
Me and Barry, he's straight ahead of me. All right. I'm pushing. I'm going to try to push him back towards y'all. Okay, yeah, he's coming towards you, Hooper.
All right, here, hold this. I'm going to go in with my hand first. See if I can get him on back. Now going with it. It is a rush unlike any other rush you'll have. It's one of those things, if you try it once, you're either hooked for life or you've been there, done that, you don't want to do it no more. But I caught the bug. I'm out here with Eric Anderson and Tanner Romsdale. I was lucky enough to get them started 2 years ago, and I think they both got the bug too.
This is the big fish holes, and this is where all the big fish always come from. And I was very leery when Hooper first invited me to come out here and try it with him. I'd seen pictures where they'd caught fish before, big 40, 50, 60-pound flatheads. So I thought, I guess it's something I never thought I'd actually try to do, because to me it just seemed just totally crazy. All right, I'm in the mouth. I got him. I got his jaw. All right, don't let go. All right, right here at the mouth. You need help? You good? Filler, get you a thumb in. Here you go, Barry. Flathead.
You know, we do this during the catfish spawn, and what they're doing, they're cavity nests. They go up into under rocks, and that's where they nest and spawn. And so we've found some locations that the catfish use over the years, and you go back, and during the month of June's a prime month, and go back during the month of June, and you go in and run your hand up in the hole, and they're very territorial and they're guarding their eggs, and they'll come up and shake your hand.
You gonna put it back in the hole?
Go back.
Here you go. There's my hand. There's the hole. Right there. All right. She's in. She's back in. Cool.
You catch a 40-pounder, the next thing you want to catch is a 50-pounder. If you catch a 50, you want to catch a 60.
Go get him. He's got him. He's got him.
Yes, sir. Getting a hold of something with that much power, and it's hand to hand, and it's a lot of good time with friends, and it's just a great way to spend a summer afternoon.
15, 20 pounds. It is an adrenaline rush. He might have her. Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
I love the bass fish. I love the turkey hunt. It's that same adrenaline rush. But unlike all these other sports that are visual, you don't, it's all done by touch and all done by feel.
Ready to put it back in?
Put her in the hole if you don't mind.
All right, 1 second.
And when the catfish grabs you by the hand, it shakes you like a dog. And good job. Then the fight's on.
You blocked?
Yeah, he can't get out this hole.
Okay. That is the most exciting part about it, is because you don't know. You stick your hand, or sometimes a stick, or if it's a deeper hole in there, and that fish will react by biting your hand or biting the stick. And that anticipation is the number one thing that I'm scared to death of every time I do it.
Oh.
I'd say Eric's fighting it right now. Got him. Yeah, he's fighting it.
I don't think I ever felt them. I never heard it.
It was right down here. Got him. Got a boy. Got a blue.
Getting your hands at fish and wrestling it, getting it to the surface is a lot of fun. But for me personally, it's coming out with friends and laughing, picking on each other, joking around. The fish is just the icing on the cake. So whenever you can get a fish to the surface after you've wrestled with him, worked him, and get him up, and you can high five with your friends and just have that memory, that's kind of what it's all about.
Oh, it's a mean old blue, wasn't it?
It's a mean old blue.
Next up, Free Fishing Day in Tennessee.
You see you want to hold him? You got to put your finger right here.
This is the 19th annual George Gregory Fishing Rodeo. This is held out at Williamsport Lakes on Whippoorwill Lake, which is a kids' fishing lake.
I've been here at these lakes ever since they opened. I can't remember what year that was, but it's been a long time. And if I got a chance to fish, I'm here.
This is mainly a kids' event. However, we do allow parents, guardians, whatnot, to come along to fish with their child, just to make it a memorable experience for them.
I brought some kids, to introduce them to how to fish, and just to teach them how to fish.
I got my grandkids today, and I just love to see a kid catch a fish. An adult, he's had his lifetime to catch a fish. I've had my lifetime. I enjoy to see any kid catch a fish.
The main reason for this event is just get kids outside fishing. You know, a lot of times they're not able to get out, and this gives them a chance to come out with mom or dad, somebody that wants to take them fishing. You know, that way they can build on that. We do have a wide array of events across the state now. Typically, this event will hold probably around 250 people. We've got some local sponsors. Murray County Sheriff's Department reserve deputies help sponsor this event along with Columbia Noon Rotary. They cook lunch. They're really good about helping us out with events that we have here for the youth in Murray County. We usually do door prizes, big fish, small fish. We tag some fish here in the lake, so if somebody catches a tag fish, they'll get a prize for that.
Our big fish winners get a prize, and then they can go up and pick.
We like to get enough prizes where everybody leaves with something.
Pick your prize, buddy.
This is my third time coming out here on the rodeo, fishing rodeo, and free fishing day. A lot of people might not have that income to buy a fishing license, and this is a good day to bring everybody out.
Some of them had never been before. You know, if I can share a little something with them, I'm going to. Yeah, they're real excited to be here.
Our next story features Normandy Fish Hatchery and their work with walleye.
Today we're up the very upper reaches of Center Hill Lake. It's the Caney Fork River below Great Falls Dam. It's one of the few places in Middle Tennessee that you have a good walleye run. There's very little available spawning habitat left in Tennessee. So what we do is when we can find those fish that have that available spawning habitat, we'll take a few of them and we'll make many more of them. We'll give them a head start at the fish hatchery, and then we can distribute them across the state, which they do just great. They grow well, they just don't reproduce well in a lot of our reservoirs. So that's the objective. Without the efforts made at fish hatcheries, we probably wouldn't have a sustainable walleye fishery, or in some cases, a sustainable crappie fishery, or without a doubt, a sustainable striped bass fishery. We actually use electrofishing boats. We have generators with electrodes hanging off of them. The boat actually acts as the ground, and so it forces electricity through the water. Eventually it stuns them, and you can dip them up, put them in the live well, and they'll recuperate within just a few moments. Really harmless to the fish. We do it every year, annually, and it's usually about the second week in March when water temperatures rise between 50 and 55 degrees. Broodfish are just mature adult fish. So you need males and females to bring back to the hatchery to spawn them to create a good year class for all of the other reservoirs. We try to raise about 1.5 million walleye at this fish hatchery every year. So just by taking about 25 to 30 females and twice the males, 60 males, we can bring them into the hatchery building and under these controlled conditions, get about 5 million eggs from those fish. First off, we'll bring the hauling trucks into the building, and we'll take these fish off. And as we bring them off, we're assessing their condition and their health, determining male or female, and we'll separate those fish. If they are not ready to ovulate, we'll give them a small injection of hormone to help stimulate that. It's sort of like being induced at the nursery ward. We generally take 1 female to 2 males, and if we have any water in the dish, then that interferes with the fertilization process. So we'll clean them off. We'll dry them off very well, because when we strip spawn them, you place your hand just below their throat and push the eggs out of their vent. You do that several times until their ovaries are empty. Then we'll bring both the males over and strip the milk out of them onto the eggs. And then we'll just add water. And this begins the fertilization process. We add the water and stir that up and gently with the turkey feather, because the turkey feather is just stiff enough, but just soft enough. You can actually turn the eggs, but not damage them. So we'll turn those for about 2 minutes. Any less, you get reduced numbers of fertilization. And then we add a suspension of a diatomaceous earth that will break up the stickiness on the eggs, because in nature those eggs will adhere to the rocks almost immediately in that swift water. And in the hatchery environment, we want each egg to be individual and separate from each other, and so that we can flow water around those eggs in this artificial environment. And then we'll transfer the eggs into another bath and let them sit for an hour, 2 hours to water harden. The outside of the eggshell, as soon as it comes out of the vent of that fish, is very soft. And over just a few hours of exposure in the water, that eggshell becomes much harder. So any little rocks that would tumble over it in nature and things like that might not crush that egg. So we let them water harden, and then we'll siphon them off into a jar and then place them on a hatching battery with water flowing through it. And the water will suspend those eggs for 2 to 3 weeks. And the eggs will start out just a very golden yellow, and over time, as they develop in the embryo, they will get much darker. A couple weeks later, those after incubating in our jars, the larva will actually hatch out of those eggs. We'll then transfer them into our stocking ponds, our hatchery ponds, where they can grow out. And we try to get them up to about 2.5, 3 inches. Much more than that, and they begin to eat each other. They're a very big predator, and they'll actually cannibalize on themselves. So if we don't get them out within about 30 days after stocking them, they'll begin to eat each other, and your numbers will start to go down. We do about 100,000 fry per acre in our hatchery ponds, and our return could be as much as 80 to 90%. So it's about May 1st, the first week of May, that we start to harvest these things. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of teamwork. It's a fairly simple process. It's just a little time consuming, and just waiting for the ponds to drain slowly. Then we go down once all the fish are collected into the kettle, and we'll climb down into there with seines, and we'll seine those fish out into buckets. Once we've harvested all those fish and transferred them onto the Holland tanks, we'll come back to the hatchery building, open up the tanks, and we'll do a quick sub-sample. So we'll take a known weight of fish, and we'll count how many of those fish there are per pound. So we know how many pounds are on the truck. We know how many fish per pound, so we can get a good estimate of how many fish we have on the truck. And then it's at that point that we decide where they would need to go. Not all reservoirs have what it takes to produce, crappie, walleye, largemouth bass. So if there's something lacking, we try to supplement that and make every lake a good lake to fish.
White-tailed deer were a rare sight in Tennessee when the TWRA was founded in 1948. Today, we estimate our deer population at nearly 1.6 million. But they face a growing and significant threat, chronic wasting disease. Currently, there is no cure for CWD, and the disease is 100% fatal for the animal, which threatens both the health of our wildlife populations and the opportunities available for hunters. Management of CWD is complex and requires numerous long-term techniques to be applied, monitored, and adjusted over time, which is why TWRA is implementing a new 5-year CWD response and management plan. The plan includes 5 main overarching goals. Number 1, prevent the introduction or spread of CWD to new areas. Number 2, surveillance and monitoring to improve early detection of the disease and better track the number and location of cases. Number 3, activate management and responses to minimize the impacts of CWD where the disease has been detected and proactively respond to any new cases. Number 4, more research to optimize all of TWRA's CWD programs. And finally, number 5, outreach and communications to ensure the public and our hunters have the information they need about CWD. This new CWD response and management plan will serve as a guiding document for TWRA staff and ensure the best science is applied to our efforts to control the disease. And we want to have a whole of government approach. That's why we created this plan with the help of the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, with additional input from a wide range of stakeholders over an 18-month process. Research on animal health diseases, including CWD, is constantly evolving, so the agency plans to remain flexible and adaptable in our response plans so white-tailed deer remain an important feature of Tennessee's landscape and culture. Our hunters have an important role in helping manage CWD, and we want to hear from you. The CWD Response and Management Plan will be available for public comment this winter, and the agency will host a public meeting for an in-person opportunity to discuss the plan with our biologists. Together, we can control the spread of CWD in Tennessee. For more information on CWD hunting regulations and incentives, visit cwdintennessee.com.
Next up, partnering for wildlife habitat.
This break here is the one I'm worried about the most, and then the break on the other end. And those are the two. We term it as the private lands program. We've evolved into wildlife habitat biologists. And so our job is to help landowners manage wildlife habitat on their property.
When my parents passed away and kind of we took over management of the land, I thought about what I wanted to accomplish and the management plans for the farm. And one of the things I really wanted to do was try to bring the quail population back.
If you'll like that for me. Some of the most valuable habitat you can have on your property that will benefit a multitude of a suite of species is early successional habitat. And we basically define that as the first 3 to 5 years of growth on an area. Fire plays an integral part in the management of early successional habitat.
It was pretty easy to get involved with the programs here. Of course, growing up on the farm, I knew about the Soil Conservation Service. I'm actually a professor in the Department of Forestry, Wildlife, and Fisheries at UT in Knoxville, and done a lot of work with TWRA. So I've done a lot of research on private lands and private land ownership.
There's so many different avenues to take, but in my opinion, that's what we're here for. There are 3 other biologists besides myself across the state, and our job is to work with landowners to guide them through that process. We backburned into the wind and created a larger fire break for ourselves, and then we strip head fired. When you come across and use the wind to carry the fire, and it reaches what you've already burned and dies out. So we did a back burn with strip head fires, and we burnt this whole 10 acres in sections of about 3 acres each. We partner with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and we work in their system to help these landowners obtain cost share funding through the federal farm bill. We work with the district conservationist in each county and work with the landowners that come into their office asking them about wildlife and wildlife habitat. We work with people that email us or call us. We set up site visits with them. The reason that fire is so important is because it removes all of that dead vegetation and all of that fodder that is inhibiting the movement of ground nesting birds. And so they need that bare ground component to survive. And when we bush hog or mow, we just lay that thatch back down on the ground. So when we use fire, we consume all that and open up the ground level so those species can move and forage freely.
I mean, there are 2 or 3 things here, I guess. As a teacher and a professor, we always teach from the book and all these things and go out and see what other people are doing. But this has given me the unique perspective as a landowner to actually understand the thought processes and as well as their programs and everything available. So it's really helping me with bringing in real life experience into the classroom to help train our future natural resource management professionals.
A good place to go to find out this information is our website, tnwildlife.org. You can go in there and there's a section that says for habitat conservationists, and you can scroll through there and find who to contact for technical assistance in your county. There'll be a whole list of district conservationists, foresters, your TWRA wildlife habitat biologists, a suite of people on there in your county that you can contact.
Training Day.
2171, Bedford County 911 called and said 2 fishermen called them and advised a boat has crashed. It's going to be at the Tennessee Fire Codes Academy, be the lake.
All right. Welcome back from our break. We're going to, our next committee is Fisheries. I'm going to call on Chairman Hank Wright, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Last month at our December's meeting, we passed Sport Fishing Proclamation 2210, which added some trotline restrictions that serve to bring our sport fishing trotline regulations more in line with commercial. At the end of that meeting, the commission agreed to begin an investigation and just try to learn all we could about 3 things, what our neighboring states are doing. We're not copycats, but we can learn from their actions and what they've enacted with regard to trotline regulations. The second thing was find out from all our neighboring states what's the history of injuries, incidents, and deaths as a result of trotlines. And then the third is just an in-depth review of all incidents in Tennessee. It's important to note that over the last month, this was a iterative and not a decision making process. It was not a decision-making process. It was not an iterative process. It was more of a fact-finding mission to learn all we can so we can make better decisions with accurate information and data. In that regard, we specifically asked our fisheries chief and our law enforcement colonel and their staff to contact all their counterparts in neighboring states and other various entities to gather all the information they could in the regard I was talking about. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Thurman, our chief of fisheries, and he'll present these findings and also the findings that Colonel Ryder and his staff were able to find from neighboring law enforcement.
Thank you, Chairman Wright. At the December meeting, the Commission passed Proclamation 2210. This is our sport fishing proclamation, and it included changes to our trotline regulations. There was considerable discussion around this aspect of the proclamation. The decision, the Commission advised that prior to the January meeting, there would be a process to evaluate what had been passed. At the Commission's direction, TWRA personnel reviewed border state trotline regulations and reached out to our fisheries and law enforcement counterparts in those states to determine if there had been any conflicts, fatalities, or incidents associated with trotlining. In our review of border state regulations, we looked at the following aspects. We looked at depth requirements, marking requirements, number of lines and hooks, checking requirements, and additional regulations. This table shows the results of this review. We also have Tennessee's regulations in this table. They're at the bottom. One of the things I noticed with the table that I'd like to point out is in the table, we don't have the depth restrictions labeled in there. I realize that, and we have 2 states that have depth requirements, 2 border states. Georgia and Kentucky have a 3-foot limit on how they have to be set below 3 feet, 3 feet or below. All states require some type of labeling. Most states had limits on the number of hooks, except for Arkansas, North Carolina, and Virginia. Arkansas does have an exception to that, and it's on the Mississippi River, where there is a 100 hook limit. Most states had checking requirements, and the majority of those were around 24 hours. However, it did range from 24 hours to 7 days, and Georgia only identified that lines must be checked regularly. Most states had restrictions related to trotline placement near dams, as well as site-specific restrictions on trotline fishing. Of this group of states that we're looking at, only North Carolina and Tennessee have regulations that restrict bank-to-bank sets. The regulation that we passed in December eliminates bank-to-bank sets on rivers in Tennessee. Only 2 border states, North Carolina and Georgia, required buoys on all trot lines. I think it's important to note that we require them on floating lines. In our communications with our counterparts in law enforcement and fisheries, we learned that there had no other states that had conflicts, incidents, or fatalities associated with trot lines. We were also asked to look further into the 2019 drowning on the Buffalo River. TWA law enforcement staff reviewed the Perry County Coroner and Perry County Sheriff's Department incident reports and conducted interviews with first responders. During the review of these reports and interviews, there was no evidence that a trot line was observed. This slide shows our current regulations. Our trot line is defined with the spacing of hooks and identifies that they got to be single hooks. Talks about the tagging requirements. They got to be marked within 5 feet of either end. Got to be checked every 24 hours. And they cannot extend more than 3/4 of the way across any stream, river, chute, or embayment. Sport fishing trot lines that aren't fished according to those regulations can be removed by agency personnel. The next 2 regulations were not in the section that we worked on at the last meeting. They're in another part of the proclamation, but they can't be set within 1,000 yards of a TVA or Corps of Engineer dam, and we have other site-specific restrictions on trot lining. Based on the reviews described and discussions that have taken place since the December meeting, it is the agency's opinion that our regulations are in a good place, and we recommend that no change be made to Proclamation 2210. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief Thurman. I think what we'll do, we will open for public comment in just a moment. I just wanted to see if, check with other committee members on Fisheries Committee if they had any comments or questions for you. I thought it was interesting that we're one of 3 states that requires marking, hooker line limits, checking requirements, and additional requirements. One of the 3 of 9 required all 4 categories or had regulations in all 4. But that's my only comment. Anybody else in Fisheries Committee with comments or questions for Chief Thurman? Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Wright. Mark, remind me again why we went from bank to bank to 3/4. What was the reasoning the agency recommended that to the commission?
In the incident that took place on the Nolichucky River, the primary issue was that the trot line was set bank to bank. And the regulation that we passed eliminates that type of set. We feel like that's a safety measure, and that's the reason it was made.
All right, thank you.
Any other committee members with questions for Chief Thurman? Comments? Anyone from the public wishing to speak? If you would, if you'd state your name and where you're from. We're glad you're here.
My name is Andy Demetrio, and I'm from Bartlett, Tennessee, which is just to the northeast, on the northeast side of Memphis, Tennessee. I am a certified American Canoe Association instructor, level 2 for rivers. I'm also on the American Canoe Association River Discipline Kayak Committee, which means that I set and I help set policy nationwide, or I guess around the world, for safety when it comes to river kayaking. I'm also on the board of directors for the Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association and a member of the Bluff City Canoe Club in Memphis, Tennessee. And until today, until DU Dave got here, I probably had the hardest name to pronounce in the room. But one of my fellow board members had made a letter that he wanted read at this meeting, so I'd like to read it today. His name's Daniel McKee, and he's a licensed Tennessee fishing guide. He's also an ACA river kayaking instructor, river rescue instructor, POW Sports angler instructor. He is the nationwide safety coordinator for Kayak Bass Fishing LLC, a board member for the Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association, a lifetime member of Trout Unlimited, and a member of the Tennessee Fly Fishers. He's also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. He says, I've been fishing, wading, kayaking, swimming, canoeing, teaching, and boating Tennessee rivers and lakes for most of my life. The last several years, I've noticed the amount of unmonitored fishing lines has been growing. Whether it is limb lines or trot lines that are not properly tagged and abandoned until the dry rot sets in, they are to be found on almost every Tennessee river I've been on. This year, I've personally observed abandoned static fishing lines on the following rivers: Stones, the East and West Forks, Caney, Elk, Duck, Emory, Tennessee, near Muscle Shoals, as well as Nickajack, Cumberland, Piney, Buffalo, Nolichucky, Lower Hiwassee, along with lakes impounding those river systems. These archaic forms of unmonitored fishing are endangering human lives as well as the balance of fish life that is not the intended target. In August of 2022, while paddling a 3-mile stretch of the Duck River from Mullins Mill to River Rats 41, I counted over 40 unmonitored lines that were not tagged. Thank you for helping with this by at least listening to my concerns. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Semper Fi, Daniel McKee, Bell Buckle, Tennessee. Now, the way Tennessee regulations are worded now allows some outdoorsmen to create invisible lethal hazards for other outdoorsmen, and this commission has the opportunity to prevent the preventable. Last month, a representative from the United States Coast Guard gave the Coast Guard's opinion that TWRA should adopt the safety regulations already put in place in neighboring states, and I'm here to reiterate that the American Canoe Association, as well as numerous paddle sport organizations across the state, support these common sense changes as well. Last month, I made the case, excuse me, that TWRA and ACA Tennessee make a powerful team to do great things when we partner. Please partner with us on these regulation changes that will create a safe environment for all who use Tennessee's wonderfully unique waterways. Thank you.
Any questions from committee members for this gentleman? Or commission in general?
Yeah, I've got a question. You said that that was the official Coast Guard position. I didn't understand that that was
Yes, sir. He was.
Uniform, and he said go do it, but I didn't understand that it was an official position of the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yes, sir. He was here.
How do you document that?
I mean, I can have that documented for you.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that.
All right.
Commissioner Blue.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you being here and thank you. First of all. Secondly, we appreciate our ladies and gentlemen doing due diligence and all the research they've done and on the surrounding states and laws that are existing on the books now. But if you were going to adopt another state's laws, what would it be? What with the Canoe Association, what state do you like best and why?
Like I said, well, not like I said, but like was presented up there, I think a combination of some of the states, what they have in place honestly, I think it would make Tennessee be in the forefront of safety on this one. The 3/4 of the way across, I think, is getting closer to what the ACA is looking for, which would be parallel to the shoreline. I noticed that I think North Carolina was the state that had that. No trotline may be set, placed, or used as to constitute a hazard to boating or public safety, which is in practice in South Carolina and Georgia. I think that just makes sense. When I think about this now, I own an outfitter in Memphis called Blue City Kayaks, and we lead tours. And one of the things that I focus on is safety. Safety for our guests. Sometimes they're first-time paddlers. Sometimes they have disabilities that won't allow them to do the nose and toes up, the defensive swimming. So a trot line could get in their way if they can't get their feet at the water, even at 3 feet down. So we focus on safety, and I lost my train of thought there. But so I think that the parallel is a good idea because it keeps. If someone falls out of a boat or someone's swimming or someone's tubing and they have their feet dragging and river levels fluctuate. So what might be 3 feet today, maybe 2 feet tomorrow. And I know that the 24 hours would help prevent that, but what happens in the meantime? Or what happens if there's a quick drop, if that makes sense? There are enough, and this is observational, there are enough natural dangers in rivers that we have to avoid, that we don't need to be adding things that one outdoorsman is doing that can endanger another outdoorsman. So if you ask me one specific state, I don't know if I could pick one specific state, but I could pick a combination of states and think, wow, Tennessee's got the one that still allows for this type of fishing to happen, but also does it in a way that is safe.
Yeah, it didn't appear to be every state had everything that like North Carolina's got the parallel, but a lot of other things they didn't have. Georgia, and
Sure.
We have some things that North Carolina didn't as well,
And I believe on the I don't know if it was called an executive summary, but on the front page of the packet that was handed out before Daniel Rogers' statements last month, it actually listed it actually showed a combination of what the states had that ACA, Tennessee, and paddling groups across the state are behind. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Okay, I'll address the committee members. Is any action to be taken? Do you have any further comments on this matter? All right, seeing none, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Wright. I'd like to make just a brief statement. Our job here today is to serve the citizens of the entire state. We must consider all the facts in every situation, and we have to make a well-reasoned decision. And the commission has spent hours on this specific issue. And actions we take are with the servant heart. We want to do the right thing. We want to research and do our due diligence. And we've done that in this situation. Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, I do have one, and I missed this, and I just want to thank Chief Thurman and Colonel Ryder and their staffs because they spent an enormous amount of time gathering an enormous amount of information from many states, and they did it over Christmas vacation, and New Year's was really hard to get a hold of all of their counterparts in those states. So I just want to thank them.
I appreciate you too, Chairman Wright. he really initiated a lot of discussion and digging deeper and getting all of our facts. So I appreciate you leading that. Thank you. Okay. With that, we will move on to retention, recruitment, and reactivation. I'm going to call on Commissioner Granberry in charge of McLaren's not here today. So go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Box. I'm subbing in for Brian McLaren, who's not here today, and we're going to talk today about a couple of shooting complexes. And I think we have virtually, is everybody up and running on Zoom? Okay, so first person we're going to hear from is Captain Tim Sain to talk about Doe Mountain Shooting Complex. So we'll turn it up. I think it'll be on the screen here. Now, I'll remind the commission and the committee that we're pushing this forward, and later on, budget will look at the actual dollars to be allocated to these programs once we hear from Captain Sain, and I think Joey Woodard is going to present on Montgomery County. Okay, we ready to go?
Yes, sir. I'm ready. If you can hear me okay.
Yep. Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. I'll be providing an overview of Doe Mountain Recreation Authority's request for funding for a shooting sports complex in Johnson County. Next slide, please. The Doe Mountain Recreation Authority manages approximately 8,600 acres in Johnson County. Prior to the creation of the DMRA in 2012, this same property was managed by the agency for many years and included as part of the Cherokee Wildlife Management Area. The board of directors consists of the mayor of Johnson County, mayor of Mountain City, 4 appointments by the governor, 1 appointment each by the Speaker of the Senate and House, 2 appointments by the Johnson County mayor, and 1 appointment by the Johnson County Commission. The state agencies on the board are TWRA, the Department of Economic and Community Development, the Department of Environment and Conservation, and the Department of Tourism Development. The board voted unanimously to implement this project. Next slide, please. The Northeast Tennessee Shooting Sports Complex will increase shooting opportunities, provide safe hunting and shooting experiences, along with increasing education opportunities in Northeast Tennessee. This range will serve Carter, Johnson, Sullivan, Washington, and Unicoi counties in Northeast Tennessee. The nearest developed public range is the Greene County Range and Firearms Sports Complex, and it's approximately about 2 hours away from Mountain City. Next slide, please. The Doe Mountain Recreation Authority started the application process with the agency during 2022. The Doe Mountain Recreation Authority identified Site 1 first, and a public hearing was held for this site during September of 2022. There were concerns raised by the public over noise issues at this site. Due to these concerns, the Doe Mountain Recreation Authority identified Site 2 as a potential location. The feasibility of the shooting sports complex to be located at Site 2 is currently being assessed by the DMRA. Next slide, please. This is a conceptual drawing for each site. The Northeast Tennessee Shooting Sports Complex will include archery, pistol, rifle, rimfire, skeet trap, sporting clays, and 5 stand ranges. The Doe Mountain Recreation Authority is requesting $315,000 in FY23 and $1,185,000 for FY24. Thank you. If you've got any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Captain Sain. Couple of questions that I would have, then I'll ask the other committees or any other commissioners. Who will be operating the shooting range?
The Doe Mountain Recreation Authority, they have a staff there, a director, other employees. There will be a dedicated staff positions there to operate this range.
Okay, and I will note that recently at GovOps, the Doe Mountain Recreational Authority was pushed forward through their sunset hearing for another 6 years. Is that correct, Commissioner Woods? 6 years was that?
That is correct. 6
Okay.
years.
And Jason, maybe, or Chairman Cox, maybe this is a question for one of y'all. Can we talk, if we approve this and budget approves this, this is federal dollars, correct? And how does that process work? So we're just sort of making our approvals and then the federal dollars would kick in there. So there's another approval at that level. Can you explain? Or
the money is federal and we've got, money to invest in these ranges. So it's, it's part of our pass-through money from the federal government. I mean, they pass it to us with certain obligations, and we do the same contract with the shooting facilities.
Okay. Any other committee members have a question? Commissioner Butt.
It's my understanding that this Pittman-Robertson dollars and that on new construction like this, it's a 90-10 split. So that would be very beneficial to the Doe Mountain complex as well as any other potential sites. And the money is there. And so I think this is a win for them as well as any other location across the state that would pursue such. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other committee members have any questions or comments? Seeing none, any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay, I guess we need to entertain a motion as a committee to push this forward to budget. So I entertain a motion to approve Doe Mountain request as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the Doe Mountain Sportsman Complex be moved out of R3 committee to the budget committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further questions on this issue? Committee members only. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Obviously it passes. Thank you very much. Tim, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So now we'll move to Montgomery County, and I think Mr. Joey Woodard from the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Foundation will make a presentation via Zoom as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Granberry. I apologize for not being able to be there in person today. Currently dealing with my second round of COVID, so yay me. But I appreciate you putting this on the agenda. And I know I've presented this proposal in different formats to the commission a couple of times now. And the proposal, I believe, has now made its hands into all the commissioners. What we're talking about today is the Montgomery County Shooting Complex. I think most of you probably are familiar with the site. If you would advance the slide for me, Jason, please. Just give you a brief background. It's a 144-acre property that was purchased in 2005. TWA and the foundation worked collaboratively to raise the money and a grassroots fundraising campaign in that local area to purchase the property. And since 2005, it's kind of been operated in partnership with TWA. The facility offers fixed distance archery, trap, skeet, sporting clays, 5-stamp pistol, steel pistol, 100-yard rifle, and 400-yard rifle ranges. And the pistol and rifle ranges have been closed since November of 2021 due to safety concerns. And back, I guess, in April, when I came in and spoke to the commission about this issue, we talked about potential fixes out there, what it was going to take to make this range safe. And we've since gone through that process, and we have a proposal that's in front of you now. Next slide, please. In speaking with the commission, there were three overriding objectives that we had. We want to enhance the capacity and safety of the range. I know for our board, safety is paramount, and we want to make sure that whatever we end up with at the end of the day, the end product has to be safe for the public. We also want to increase capacity specifically for shooting sports teams. We'd like to have an SASP bay there at Montgomery County. We want to provide for increased opportunity for public shooting. And then the third one, and potentially just as important as the first two, is to ensure that Montgomery County Shooting Complex can be self-sustaining over time. And that's a little bit different paradigm than where we've been with that range since its inception. So that was my charge, and we've gone out and we've talked to contractors, and we put together a plan that I believe will reach all three of those objectives. Next slide, please. The proposed work consists of the majority of the earthworks out there will be to reconstruct the backstops on the pistol, the steel pistol, 100-yard rifle, and 400-yard rifle ranges. As I mentioned, the facility's been in use since 2005. These berms are not constructed to minimal safety standards. According to NRA guidelines, berm heights are as low as 12 feet on some of these, and the minimum height should be 20. In addition, just, in the 17 years of operation, the berms have been shot into and need to be reworked. So as part of this plan, we would come in, excavate material on site, elevate those berms to meet the safety standards, and then potentially also use steel deflector plates to prevent pistol or rifle projectiles from leaving the range. Included also in this would replace old trap machines on trap, skeet, and sporting clays. We would repair some failing roadways and drainage out there. As I mentioned earlier, we want to develop a designated bay for SASP. And then to get to the issue of self-sustainability, we want to construct a new centrally located pro shop and pavilion right between the rifle, pistol, and shotgun sites. Currently, our pro shop is about a half mile away, and we believe in order to make this range self-sustaining over time that we need to be able to increase retail sales. And we believe by having a pro shop that's more centrally located, we're going to increase ammunition sales, drinks, meals, all of that, all of the ancillary items, the inventory that we sell there at the range. So we believe all of these things included, puts together a package that can make this range self-sustaining over time. And that's pretty much it. I know the proposal we submitted to the commission has a lot more detail into it. I tried to be brief with my slideshow today because I know you have other things on the agenda. But with that, I think I'll take any questions. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We need to go one more slide, please. Total, just to recap over the total project budget, a little over $1.5 million. The TWF match would be $140,000 of that. So our PR grant request would be for $1.4 million. And the foundation board has officially passed a resolution to provide that match. And then because this is an open range, and we want to be able to keep that range open, we're also requesting an operations and maintenance grant, which is a slightly different grant, goes through a different process, but we wanted to go ahead and get commission approval on both. And that PR grant request would be for $150,000 for fiscal years 23, 24, and potentially part of 25. TWA being we're on a calendar year for our fiscal year, but to match the state's fiscal year. And of course, the TWF match component of that will be $37,500. And I believe that concludes this presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Joey, for that explanation, and I hope you get well soon. And we'll try to hopefully keep this brief, but I know this particular topic has garnered a lot of interest and conversation over the last 8 to 10 months, and it's something that's it's not new. It's a lot of repairs and stuff. So I will ask any committee members if they have any questions, and then we'll turn it over to the rest of the commission. I probably can ask most of the questions, but I'll let the other committee members chime in. So Commissioner Cox, if you'd start us off.
And Joey, I'm going to ask you a question that I was saving for budget, but you may not feel like staying for that long. A couple of things. You and I have discussed management and how important that is, and getting somebody that's trained, and that's still your plan, or can you tell us what your plan is for that, or what your efforts going to be?
Yes, sir. I mean, management is going to be key out there. We do want to have someone who has experience in running ranges. The current manager, the person that's serving as the manager out there now, is serving in an interim position. And the idea would be that we would find, a permanent position, a permanent range manager, that we'd have time to get them on board while these repairs are being made, so they get their feet under them before we reopen fully to the public.
And you're going to try to, I know you've already talked to one, but you're going to perhaps come up with a work with your board and come up with an incentive package to try to get somebody that's educated in range management with experience, try to get somebody really good.
Yes, sir. I think it's going to be important that we cast a wide net and that we have, an attractive compensation package so that we can attract the right talent to the range.
Well, I think that's going to be one of the most important things. And the other question is, and I discussed this with you about phasing or not spending the money on your pro shop and that kind of accessories until you get your rehab done and get open and try to get some customers and back on the range and get a demand for your facilities. Does that sound good to you?
Yes, sir. I think we can approach it that way. When you and I were discussing earlier, the one thing that I would want to make sure is that I would want to make sure that we do our all of our engineering, our cultural resources survey, and environmental work, permitting wise. I would like to do all that legwork at once, so that we don't have to go through that again. I think there'd be significant cost and time savings doing all of that as if we were going to build the pro shop within the first phase.
The email you sent to your board about the liability, you didn't get any negative responses. They're all
No,
good.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. My board is completely, they're completely behind this proposal. I did not receive a single negative response.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, I was just going to clarify, Chairman Granberry or Commissioner Cox, these, either the reconstruction or the operations budget or the request, all that is federal tax dollars that are being run through our budget.
Plus the dollars that they're matching.
That they are matching. Right,
Correct.
right. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Chairman Box, you have a question?
Yeah, I just, first of all, both of these ranges, I think it's important to support with Governor Lee executive order on a right to carry. And so I think it'd be great to support these. I also think it's important that we're good stewards of our money and we do the right thing in both of these ranges. Is there any, what's the timeline again? You said, you probably said it and I didn't hear it, on opening once we can get those repairs done?
So the Chairman Box, the shotgun side of things is open now. It's perfectly safe for trap, skeet, and sporting clays. Ideally, we'd like to get the work done in the summer, fall of 2023, so that we could reopen the rifle, perhaps spring of 2024.
Okay.
And of course, there's a lot of questions about that with supply shortages,
Right, exactly.
labor, all of the issues that go along with that. But that would be our goal.
So right now it's just completely closed? Is there anything, there are events there or anything yet that we can?
No, well, now on the shotgun side, we remain open on the shotgun side of things, and we are having events there. We have Sporting Clays League, we have 5-stand league that's going on. We have at least 2 major shoots for next year, 2023. I think we've got the Tennessee TriStar that we do and the U.S. Open this year. I think we secured that as well for that facility.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else from the committee? If not, anybody from the commission?
Before you shut down part of the range, and it's my understanding that the complex was generating about 750,000 plus in revenue, and that
less than that, I think it was 600 and something thousand was gross revenue.
Yeah, and it was revenue neutral. Do you anticipate with the repairs and putting in the whole complex back online that there will be an increase in the revenue and enough to offset the expense of a qualified manager?
Absolutely. I mean, we're hoping, our projections are a 15% increase in revenue. And obviously that'll help us break even out there. But with proper management, I think the range could actually turn a profit.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Commissioner Granberry. Just a comment. Thanks for letting Commissioner Wide comments rather than just R3. I'm not on R3, but I feel like in order to ensure success, we're going to need a pro shop house. I'd hate to see us open it without that. I think that could be a mistake. When you open a restaurant, you want to open up all your tables, not just a few. So I would encourage us. We have a fiduciary responsibility to spend our money right and efficiently, but this won't affect our budget. So I just think it makes sense.
Thank you. Okay, Joey, I'll wrap it up and thank you for your time. And I appreciate Commissioner Wright. I've asked him, his father lives in the Clarksville area, and about the location and the pro shop and, you know, obviously supply chain and cost of building stuff. And so I think as we work through this, as per your presentation, the first and most important thing you said was to get the safety aspects fixed. So let's make sure that happens first, get this thing back open, and obviously work through the process of hopefully building the pro shop if the budget dollars are available. So I appreciate it. And at this time, from a committee member, I'd entertain a motion to move this forward to the budget committee.
Chairman, motion to approve the Montgomery County Shooting Complex Reconstruction and Operations budget
As presented.
as presented.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. Any more discussion? Chairman Box, did you have a comment?
I won't be here, but it'd be nice to get an update, maybe every 6 or 8 months, or maybe once, just come back and give us an update on both these ranges with the new improvements. It'd be nice to see that, just to see where.
Thank you. As much as you're around our meetings, Joey, it would be great to get you know, based on Commissioner Butt's comments about the revenue and the potential increase of the revenue and building this pro shop. You know, we'd love to see that 650 grow to 800 to 900 and really build up the teams and the competitions, and, you know, maybe open up more than 3 or 4 days a week and just grow the program, which I think is something you want to do, but that's a great point. So if we have a motion and a second, is there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that if this is the appropriate time or the budget portion is the appropriate time, but do we need to put any caveats in our recommendation that ensures that we address safety concerns before improvements? Because I mean, both of these are big asks, and you know, sometimes the grant funding process can be a little finicky, and they'll just give you a portion of the money. And you know, I guess from a fiduciary responsibility, as you discussed earlier, I want to make sure that that the safety concerns are addressed on the front end.
I think you're certainly open to making an amendment to that effect if that's your desire.
Oh, then I'll make an amendment to that effect.
Okay. So we have an amendment to make sure that the safety concerns are addressed first and foremost before anything's done on the pro shop. And so I guess, Torrey, we'll need to vote on the amendment first before we.
Well, or is he making that motion for finance? So I guess that's the question. You can do it here.
Well, yeah, we're making a recommendation to the budget committee.
Okay. So that
yes.
Okay. So Commissioner Jones has asked for an amendment to make sure that the safety concerns are addressed first. Do I have a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Are any questions about the motion as amended? So we'll vote on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the full motion as amended. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so now we're back to the original motion, which is as amended, to make sure that any dollars allocated, if there's a shortfall in those dollars, that the safety concerns are addressed first and foremost. So do we need to revote that? A motion second on as amended? So do you have a motion on the motion as amended?
You need another motion?
Yeah, we need a motion on the motion.
So move.
We have a motion and a second on the motion as amended. Any discussion? Everybody confused as they can be, right? Joey's got COVID brain, so he doesn't know, what we're talking about. So basically, the motion as amended basically says that as we refer this to the budget committee, that the federal dollars as allocated, that the first dollars go to the safety aspects of the shooting range at Cumberland, at Montgomery County Shooting Range in Clarksville. That's a tongue twister. All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Madam Chairman, that concludes the R3 portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Granberry. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you, Joey. To the next committee is communications. I call on Chairman Granberry.
All right.
You're up.
We're on a roll here. I'm going to call on Emily Buck, our new communications director. But first I want to comment about the committee real quick. And Emily's handed out our outline of the committee, which is not something that this committee or commission votes on. It's just a outline that we've given to management to say, these are the things that we think are important to this commission moving forward, to communicate with not only us, but our staff, our constituents, our legislatures, the whole gamut of people. It's a working process. Emily and staff have done a wonderful job to implement these plans, from these little snippets of information on the elk, the current brochure we just got on baiting. We're talking about legislative updates from Torrey and Mike. All these things are in process. And Emily, we really appreciate the weekly, monthly updates from the director and all these things that are so important. And we really look forward, and the pressure's on to Torrey and Mike, that one of the most important things this commission has been talking about for a long time is keeping us up to speed with what's going on Capitol Hill on a daily basis, so we're not blindsided by our constituents and they walk in and say, well, what about this? And we say, we don't know what you're talking about. Well, now we will, because we're going to get really good updates on a weekly basis from Mike. And then most exciting part of Emily's got a sample that we're working on is our annual report that we can brag about everything we do and show everybody that we're, not just our hunting and fishing guides and our calendars, but these are our successes that are happening. And we've got a lot of really good templates to work from, and Emily's going to perfect it, and we're going to get it printed out, and we're going to have it going great. So Emily, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
He just said my whole presentation, so I'm just going to go sit back down.
We'll go sit down.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much. I've really enjoyed both of, well, since I've got the mic, I really enjoyed both of the duck presentations we had earlier. I wrote down some really important advice from Brad's presentation. It pays to be a boring duck. So I'm implementing that advice now for this presentation, just to be safe. But we can go ahead to this first slide. Oh, you know what? I've got the clicker. All right. So like Commissioner Granberry said, we've implemented a new communications committee, which is a tongue twister to be sure. When we launched this committee here, right when I came on board, it's been a work in progress. We had 3 overarching goals that we really wanted to focus on. We want to develop a standard operating procedure for year-round communications between TWA staff and commissioners. It's one of those things you do, but there's not always a system for it. And so we're really looking at ways we can be sure that we're doing everything we can. We want to keep commissioners informed of events and news in a timely manner, as well as guidance from the executive director on what requires immediate notification. Especially as a law enforcement agency, there are often emergencies that commissioners will be approached about or get questions about, and we want to be sure that all of our leadership has information that they need. And then third, develop impactful external communications to share with the public, highlighting our successes. So based on that, we came up with kind of 6 main action items that we were going to work on. First, legislative updates. As Commissioner Granberry mentioned, our work with the legislature is very important to ensure that we're moving forward in a good direction. And so we'll be working with Mike and Torrey to be sure we have updates for staff as well as commissioners about what's going on at the legislature. An event calendar for commissioners. We wanted to be sure that we are inviting everyone who needs to be invited to different events that we're putting on. TWA has a lot of great events for the public, for staff, and we just want to be sure everyone's able to attend when possible. Our annual report, I'm going to circle back to here at the end. Code of ethics, Torrey's going to talk about a little bit later, so I won't steal his thunder. Moving in a positive direction is one that, again, is just something you always want to be doing. We want to encourage and empower staff to share their success stories with the public. We want to be sure that their voices are heard. And we also want to be sure that we are working to facilitate a positive conversation on our social media platforms and the communications channels that we're responsible for, including media when possible, although sometimes that is a little out of our control. We also are working on some housekeeping items when we think about progress and moving forward. You may have noticed we have a new PowerPoint template. That's just a housekeeping thing, but it's part of putting our best face forward for the agency, and it's something that we always want to be doing. And then last, communications with constituents and staff. We just want to ensure that we help facilitate an open line of communications between commissioners and the public, and just being sure that messages are well-crafted, thoughtful, and that the public has access to the information they need. So as Commissioner Granberry mentioned, we have put together an annual report for the year. The last one we had done was 2016, 2017, and it kind of more of a technical style report. Previously, for the 65th anniversary of the agency, we had made a kind of a pretty glossy one. So we wanted to get back to that so that we can share success stories. Currently, it's a draft. When we get back to the office, we're going to have all the chiefs put eyes on it, make sure our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed and they're happy with it. But I want to say a quick thank you to Jason Harmon, our communications manager, for helping me with finding some of our graphics, and to Jennifer Wisniewski, marketing director, for making her section on RFD. She's so knowledgeable about that, so it was great to have her help on that. Some things that you'll find in this when it does go live, just faces of the agency, of course, the commissioners and where they represent. Of course, the data, the stats about different kinds of wildlife and the strategies that we're implementing moving forward. Some different stories about successes. What's really interesting, since I've been at the agency, it's clear just how smart our staff are. And they put forward so much research and data, and it can sometimes be tricky to translate that data into stories. One of the ones that I really love that I pulled for the annual report, and it's just so small, but we had a project where staff implanted a transmitter into a pine snake for a telemetry project, and that little pine snake was found to go to 73 different locations and have a range of 150 acres. One little snake, and it's science, it's research like that fascinates the public, and really just highlights the good work we're doing. So we'll have lots of those good success stories in there about our staff. And with that, I think that concludes, unless there's any questions.
Emily, thanks so much, and we really look forward to. I want to quick ask any of the committee members and other commissioners if they have any questions for Emily. I just want Commissioner Box to know, and the rest of everybody to know, this was her brainchild to come up with this committee. And after serving for 6 years on the commission, she saw it firsthand how important communication was, good and bad. It's not, you just need to do it. That's just, you can't hide behind it. And we've had a lot of conversations with the director, what constitutes an email to us at midnight. And they're working on those strategies to, what do we need to know and when do we need to know it? And it's not, when somebody shoots a deer or something, we need, it's more of an emergency. So we're working on those strategies, but, this was her brainchild, and I think we're going to work on it over the next couple of years. We're going to refine it. We're going to get better. just, so that's why we don't have a raccoon on the cover. We in deference to the chairman, we didn't put a raccoon on the cover of this report, even though it was in the running to be on the cover. But Emily, I had one question. Talk to us about, we talked earlier about when this report, what time frame this report covers and what's more important to do and how that works, because you had some really good data points relative to that.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you look at how the agency reports its data. Some things come through in fiscal year 21-22. Some things are sort of measured by calendar year. This is what we did over the course of the year. And it just sort of depends on the tracking that was used. Because we had not done an annual report in a while, I went ahead and just captured 21 and 22. And so you'll sort of see throughout the annual report, I differentiated whether that was fiscal year, calendar year, so that the information would be clear about what was represented.
But moving forward, what's the best format? What do you suggest is the best format, annual or fiscal?
Moving forward, we'll probably take a fiscal approach since our budget's built around the fiscal. That'll also facilitate printing because we will wrap up our fiscal year. We'll be able to then spend the last couple months of the year on the report, get it out at the end of the year so that it can go to the legislature at the start of the session, which this one, we're going to get it wrapped up here quickly so that it'll still be impactful for lawmakers in this coming session.
Thank you, Emily. Any committee members have any questions or comments?
Chairman, I have a comment.
Okay.
That's my background, communications, and part of it in the private sector. And I just want to thank you and Chairman Box and Director Maxidon. I mean, everybody was doing their part before this on communications, but I think y'all have really uplifted this, and external and internal communications are so important. And I just want to thank Emily and the team for their work.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox.
I was going to say the same thing. So to be in communications, you don't talk much.
I don't.
No.
Bill, can you be nice for just 1 minute? Just 1 minute, just one stretch. I mean, he is the ghost man. Ghost man, that's his call sign. So, Commissioner Butt.
Would it be consideration maybe to include with the annual report the goals for the next year and things that we would address? Would that be appropriate for just maybe the 2 or 3 bullet points at the end of that? And then as we report the next year, then the progress that was made.
Certainly can look at including some of those. In past reports, a lot of times you'll have a policy section or some initiatives you're working on. In this one, I tried to capture in a couple places some of the big policy goals we're working on. For example, the agency's focus on supporting early successional habitat, which since I've gotten to this agency, I've teased quite a few people because, I didn't know what that meant. And so, we're talking about open grassland areas and shrubby brush, and so when we think about what we're communicating to the public, just telling that story in a way that they understand when they might not understand the vocabulary we use. So I tried to include some of those goals and stories in the agency, and certainly can continue focusing on that.
Anybody else? That's a great point, Commissioner Button. I think this, like I said, this is a work in motion and work in progress, and we'll, continue to refine it and add as needed, especially as we work on this annual report is very exciting to me because I think it's such a useful tool for staff and legislative contacts and just our public, our general public. A lot of times I tell people all the time that, we're not just fishing and shooting. There's so much that this agency does that is not communicated or known. And this is an opportunity. Like, who knows what that little critter is in the middle of the page? I think it's a hellbender, isn't it?
Josh, is that a hellbender? It's a salamander? It's a salamander.
It says hellbender.
Well, no. The story above it is about a hellbender.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, but the partnership on the hellbender with the National Zoo is.
I'm going to change that picture now.
So those are Don't put if you're a Florida Gator, don't put a crocodile on the front cover of their football magazine. Anybody else?
We call them spring lizards in East Tennessee.
There you go.
Commissioner Box.
Fish bait.
Chairman
Looks
Box.
like
I just
bait
wanna-
to me.
I just want to thank Emily. You are important and very valued. I'm glad you're here. Thankful
you.
for all your work. And,
Amen.
and,
We'll make sure Josh gets a look at all the critters
right.
in the report, make sure they're in the right spot.
And thank you, Chairman Granberry,
Thank
for
you.
leading this. I think I got the right person who communicates well. Chairman Granberry? I was like, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. And just as a housekeeping point of this whole process and what, we do with our ethics policy, which was mentioned in our conflict of interest, I'm going to ask Torrey Grimes to give us a brief discussion about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. All of the commissioners have a copy of the draft code of ethics that I was asked to draft by the officers. This document, it certainly can evolve. Itself is really kind of a Tennessee tailored approach that really incorporates the principles really unique to you in your charge as a Fish and Wildlife Commissioner, and best practice relative to the agency interaction and interaction really with each other as commissioners. Those best practices generally come from the Association of Fish and Wildlife and the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife guides that they publish, really kind of those big picture best practice things. So you'll see a lot of that at the very beginning of the document, but you'll also have a tremendous amount of overlap with the conflict of interest policy that you already have adopted. So, and kind of to sum up kind of what you're looking at, I really, because of that overlap, I really recommend that you consider merging the code of ethics with your current conflict of interest document, because there's so much overlap and it's strong already. So, and I'm open for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Torrey. And I think you're going to work on combining the two documents, and then in February, we will adopt the policy as amended or adjusted to combine the two, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody on the committee have a question? No comments? Okay. Thank you, Torrey, for all you do for the agency. And I'm turning it back to Chairman Box.
Thank you, Chairman Granberry. We're going to move at this point to the Budget Committee. Chairman Cox, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We'll try to get through this as quickly as we can. Josh Campbell. And I will open this to the committee and commission. So if you have questions or input, it's fine.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. The Biodiversity Division has 3 budget expansion requests associated with 3 projects: 775001 for $45,000, the Blue Mast Starter user code 775002 for $80,000, and 775004 for $100,000. These are flow-through funds associated with federal grants that were amended or awarded during the current fiscal year, and expansions and approval will allow staff to draw down these grants before they expire.
Thank you, Josh. Do I have a motion? Any discussion from the commission? Question from the public? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Butler.
Hey, excuse me, Bill, real quick. I made the motion. I didn't hear a second. Did that get seconded?
I'll second it.
Yeah, he seconded that.
Okay, I couldn't hear him. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Butler, Tennessee Wildlife Federation. I have Matt Simcox with me today. He's been running Hunters for the Hungry now for 15 years and knows a lot more about it than I do. We're here just to renew the request that was made when Matt gave the presentation at the last commission meeting for a one-time request of $75,000 to go to Hunters for the Hungry for this year. And we're here to answer any questions. I think we've shared with everybody several different documents that gave the breakdown on our budget for this year.
Thank you, Mike. I'm gonna make a quick statement before I take a motion, but, and I've talked to Mike about this, but we've got a huge hole in the budget this year because of the possible salary increases that we have not come up with monies, license dollars or other funds to meet that shortfall. And I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks, but I can't support spending state dollars on anything other than what we're doing until we get that number and figure out whether we can pay for it or not. I would really like to table this till next month till we get some more information about these salaries. And I understand what you want, and I'm your biggest cheerleader. I like what you do. You do a great job on everything, but we've just got some problems. So that's just my personal point of view, and I will take a motion. Anybody, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to defer to next month, and then I would like some discussion.
Second. But I would dispute Chairman Cox's statement. I'm the biggest supporter of the program. I've been involved in it for a number of years.
Mhm.
So I've supplied numerous truckload, trailer loads of deer for the project. So with that being said, I second the motion.
So Mike, my question is since until we defer to next month, you're great budget. I like the budget. We asked for the revenue side of the equation, and we didn't see how this is funded. All we know is the 75. So could we, between now and next month, could we get a picture on your revenue to support?
It'll be very straightforward.
Yeah, right. I mean, it should be 3 or 4 line items, but we just didn't have it, and I looked everywhere for it and all the stuff. So I just like to see that.
No, that'd be fine.
Okay.
That was primarily in response to the question we got back.
Well, I understand
on
that.
that. So,
We
yeah.
understand that. I thought, and Director McIntyre and I thought we asked for the revenue side too, like how much is donations, how much is from us, how much from other state sources. So just to see that in a very, I don't think it's 4 or 5 line items, but that would be.
That's about right.
That
We'll
would
get
be,
it to you.
That would be very helpful for me, and I'm sure
Sure.
the rest of the commission. So thank you.
Sure, we can get it to you quickly.
Well, we obviously know how important this is. It's all good work. And we're going to be working between now and then to see what our obligations are going to be. And we've all discussed in budget meetings about increased revenue and some legislation that's going to have to take place. And so we just kind of need to see where it settles out. And if we feel like, if we feel like we can cover, just about cover what we're doing, then I'll support getting the money, but for license dollars, I can't right now. So, all right, we got a motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
See you next month.
Appreciate it. Frank Fish.
All right, thank you, Chairman Cox. I've got two items I want to cover here. First, for a couple budget expansions, and then a little discussion about lifetime licenses relative to finding more dollars to fund the agency's operating costs. So we'll start with the budget requests. These are the requests that were moved through R3 committee and are now in front of the budget committee. I don't if there's any questions about those. Again, these are, one thing I do want to point out is that the next step in these is that they will go to the Fish and Wildlife Service in a grant proposal, and then we would get those dollars from the Fish and Wildlife Service. So there's another review step to make sure everything is safe and up to get to that next step. So then, after they approve it, which is typically a quick process, we would be able to start writing contracts with the grantee, which would be the Doe Mountain and the foundation.
All right, I'm going to take these separately, and I'll look for a motion for the Doe Mountain from Commissioner Tommy Woods. Are you on the budget? You're not on budget. Never mind. All right. Got it. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Montgomery Shooting Complex. We have a recommendation from the R3 committee, which I support, to get the berms and the facility, shooting facility built. And I would prefer open to see if he's going to get customers back, and hopefully by that time, if he phases it, that the building that he wants to build will be somewhat cheaper than $500,000, which it should be after what the expected recession next year. I believe we can get it done half that, or the way estimates have been going. But I need to ask Frank or Torrey, do we need to, this is going to be phased, and if you've got the directive, do we need something other than that, or will we have the opportunity before he gets that 500,000 or the money to build the buildings?
When we get to the point where we're entering a contract with the foundation, I suppose we could write it in scope of services, a crude order of operations to hit the safety first. And if there's, we at that time, we can decide what our contract with.
Yeah, I don't think the intent is for us to have you reinvent anything, but I think before the money's dispersed for the buildings, the commission would like to see that the rest of it's been done. So before you pay the money, if you could come back to us and just give us a report on it or something. I don't know how that's.
We would want to enter into a full contract and not have some iterative, like piecemeal contract.
That's fine.
That'll drag.
But after we enter the contract, if we see that the facility is built and nobody's shooting, he's not able to attract customers, then we don't want to throw another $500,000 just to build a building. So is that contract interruptible?
So
can you not fill the final contract?
I suppose we would be requesting one grant from the Fish and Wildlife Service. Then the question now is, can we split that grant into two pieces? And I don't know the answer to that. I would guess, I'd be guessing if I answered you.
But you've already split it 3 ways or so far.
Well, we know that we have funds available in FY23 for that's why it's the same amount in both for permitting and such. But it's split in how we see the money leaving the agency, but it's going to be one contract.
Well, then why can't you put the building improvements as a separate item? Just like you've got these 3. I mean, I don't understand how that works, but it seems like.
But even at the Doe Mountain, it's going to be one contract that covers all that. It'll be paid out over a couple of years. That's why I was getting at with the scope of services, maybe that could be moved to the back end of it. Usually we don't interrupt a contract. We contract it all, or you have separate contracts.
Commissioner Jones, you brought this up. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I hope both projects get fully funded by, our federal partners. My only concern was, a lot of times when you're going after federal funding, sometimes they put a moratorium on bricks and mortar. And I just wanted to make sure that if we just got a portion of those funds, that we address safety concerns first. And I know staff will structure it that way. I just felt like as a commission, it was probably our fiduciary duty to make sure that we were addressing that for our constituents.
Okay.
Does that work? Does that work?
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to make this too confusing. I just have a concern since it's been open and shut down that I'd like to see them perform, but I understand the contract. So I think I've talked to Joey at length about this, and he's going to phase it. So if it looks like it's going to go south in a couple of years or however long it takes, then I'm sure he's not going to try to throw good money after bad. So I'll entertain a motion from budget. Second. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jones.
So Frank, so the grant to the feds would be for these entire amounts. It would just be in these 2 different years that we would distribute the money.
Right. We would get a grant from, just take the Doe Mountain example. We would get a grant for $1.4 million and we would write a contract that would start in FY23 and have it, we could terminate it in 24, maybe even a little longer if we wanted to, but we're showing the Fish and Wildlife Service that we're committed, we put it in our budget, and now we're asking them to say that this is a grant that they're willing to reimburse when we spend the money.
So jump into Montgomery County. If our concern is safety, and if you look at the budget that Joey presented in his worksheet, and $1 million of the request is for safety issues, and you only fund 315 in 23, does that mean that this range won't get back open until you disperse these dollars in 24?
Well, they've acknowledged that they won't be able to get through $300,000 before July 1 because of how long it takes to do the permitting.
Okay.
Yeah. That if they thought they could move faster, I think that would have been the request. And we've talked to both of these groups to know that this would work.
So none of the way this is structured is going to slow them down to getting this back open as soon as possible.
That's not our expectation at all. This is what they indicated.
And I meant to ask Joey, but I forgot. It's my understanding that there's no money to be recovered from any lead remediation from the existing berm. Is that correct?
I don't know.
I think that was a thought that there would be, but now that didn't seem to be. Is that correct? So there's no lead remediation money available. Okay, thank you.
I think I need to go back and explain what my point is and what my reasoning is. Everything that all the federal funds that we grant to shooting complexes has a 20-year amortization. That means they've got to be there 20 years to fulfill the contract. If they don't, if they go out of business in 5, then the federal government probably is going to, U.S. Fish and Wildlife is going to want that money back. So we're liable for that money. You know, and both of these complexes are liable for that money. But if there's no money there, then TWRA is going to have to pay it. So there needs to be some performance on their part to make sure it's going to work. So that's where I'm going with this. I know it's confusing, but that's why I'm concerned about it. You had a comment?
Yes, sir. The complex is not shut down. It's just the pistol and rifle aspect of it is shut down for to update it and correct the safety issues and install the steel plates and raise the berms, and the shotgun shooting clays and other parts is still functional and still generating revenue. So it's not like the whole complex is shut down. So that was my question, referring to the revenue earlier, that they anticipate going back to at least the operational revenue and the increase. And if you remember, he said they anticipated or projected a 15% increase once everything's back up and running. So I think the support's there. It's just a matter of getting it all back together.
Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. I agree with all the concerns brought forward. I'm a believer in, we need to have it open fully with the pro shop to be successful or have the best chance of success. And I think that one comprehensive contract for construction would ensure the lowest cost and the quickest completion to get us ready and open. The longer it's partially open, the more damage you do to our customer base. And just to state on public record, I don't have a conflict. I'm from Montgomery County, but I don't have any family members that would utilize this facility, nor me. Thank you.
Chairman Cox. Go ahead.
I'm not on the committee, but can I ask
Go
a
ahead.
question?
Yeah.
Have we ever, TWRA, ever been in a situation where we have funded a federal program, it failed through federal tax dollars and then we had to pay it back?
Not that I know of, but
I'm not aware of one either. And I talked to our federal office in Atlanta about these kinds of things. And he said, well, think about a boat ramp. You know, we build a boat ramp with federal dollars and sometimes they get destroyed, and they're reasonable. They understand that it got destroyed and they're willing to give us more money to fix the boat ramp. And the other thing is they want to work with us they're not going to come knocking on the door or taking all the money back right away. There's ways they could do it over time, over future payments that they would otherwise give us. So I don't think it's going to put us at an urgent risk should this happen, and it hasn't happened yet. Every project we enter into with a grant contract, a lot of them are federal dollars. When we partner with people, we take some risk.
So they're not going to repossess the director's vehicle or cut his salary, is what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
maybe he'd be willing to put that up for collateral. Are there any other discussion? Motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
All right. Yes, I have a couple of activities revolving around lifetime licenses I want to talk about, just to give you a little history on them. They were established in 1998, and what they do is provide the holders of that license, the sportsman's license privileges. You don't need any other TWRA issued licenses, and you can have them for life. And even if you move out of state, they're still effective in Tennessee. Currently, about 186,000 people hold a lifetime license, and we keep track. We know how old all those people are and where they are in how long they've had their license, which we need to use for certification with the Fish and Wildlife Service. We get our certification through that. Annual sales for the last 5 years have ranged between 2.9 and 5.1 million each year, averaging 3.5 million. When the lifetime licenses were created, the important piece of it was the Wildlife Management Endowment Fund was also created. This is where all the money goes from the sales of those licenses, and it goes into a fund. The principal of that fund cannot be spent, and the income from investments on it can be spent, but only for those holders that we know are now over 16 years of age. And those funds can be used for operating the agency in general. And we currently have about 69 million in that fund in various places. In 2022, that law was changed to create the Lifetime Sportsman Endowment Fund, which we need by law to move that 69 million into that fund, which is a trust. And that's an important point. Is before the fund was had to follow state laws that govern monies that the agency would have in the state treasury. But since this is now a trust, we would have the ability to do different things with it. And one of them would be to use other investment vehicles to get more funds, better returns. So what we need to do with this new endowment fund is to make sure we're generating enough income to support the activities of those 189,000 license holders. And what we know about people that have licenses, or particularly lifetime licenses, the average person, only 40% of the people that have a lifetime license are probably going to use it in that year. So when we look through who the people are, how old they are, the probability that they're going to use their license and what it would cost them to buy a sportsman's license for the same privileges, we come up with an estimate that we need about $4 million of income to cover the people that trust represents. So obviously we'd want to make more money than that in a given year, but that would be a minimum standard that we would try to shoot for. And that would only be, I think, I know what it is. It's we'd be looking for about a 5% in return on those funds to get to about 3.5 million. So what we'll be doing to administer this trust, there'll be a board of trustees. It's made up by a designee from Treasury, F&A, and our director to oversee these funds and make sure they're invested in a way that we get the returns that we need. Of course, this is essentially the stock market. There can be negative returns as well, but it does position us in a better place to get more funds out of this fund.
Thank you, Frank.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got one more trick here. The next thing that we want to do is to seek changes. Now that we have that 69 million hopefully invested better, the next thing we want to do is use that for supporting those trustees, and in the future collect the sales for lifetime licenses and be allowed to use them as operating funds that year and in years going forward. So we would have an additional revenue of $3.5 million a year on average. And why are we doing that? We hinted about that earlier, about a need for additional funding. The state of Tennessee recently adjusted salary ranges affecting the positions that 140 TWA employees have. Now, about 114 of them saw raises out of it, but all those 140 positions were affected. And our additional cost annually will be $650,000 a year just to cover that. And it's important to note that Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency received no general funds to cover this increase. And that only covers part of our agency. 600 of our employees are in our wildlife class positions, and we need to adjust those salary ranges as well for us to be competitive within state government and outside of the state of Tennessee. To do that, we're going to need an additional possibly $8.5 million to cover that. So we are in pretty desperate need to seek these changes that would allow us to use the lifetime license funding in the year we collect it and follow the law to get that trust in a place where it's earning more money. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Does anybody on the committee or the commission have any questions for Frank?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
So essentially, we're freezing the trust at 69,000 and
it would remain untouchable from as far as leaving the principal
Right.
at 69 million. Yeah.
So then we will be operating off of the potential revenue created by the investment.
We want that to create revenue, and it would be for the operation. Anything that we do benefits the lifetime license holder. So we would use it for operating funds.
With the potential of 4 to 5 million, and then the 3.5 million potential for the lifetime license going back into operating fund, and we're looking at 8.5 million, which would cover
coming close
the potential increase in salary adjustments.
Correct.
Anybody else have any questions?
Commissioner Cox, I just would comment that I think absolutely both are long overdue and show a strong fiduciary responsibility of this commission, this agency, to do what's best for our sportsmen, as Director Fish was referring to.
And I think we need, what we need to do is vote to put these funds into this trust, and we need to move the entire amount, whatever that balance is. If we don't move it, we still can't touch it. I mean, it's still there. So we need to move whatever's in that endowment, we need to move to the trust.
Make a motion to move the entire endowment to the trust as established in 2022 by state law.
Second.
Any other discussion, comments, questions?
Just a question for Frank. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. That's what Commissioner Cox is looking for, I believe.
Yes.
I think the state law already covers that.
That's what you're looking for, isn't it?
Well, the state law already covers it. We need to get going on it.
Okay.
I don't know that we need commission approval, but we are happy to have it.
You got it.
Yeah. No surprises.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye on the committee. All opposed? What else do we need?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Torrey, Mike Bell is not here, so would you take that, please?
Yes, sir. Relative to the wetlands fund, we've currently drafted legislation and I'm speaking on behalf of Mike, who couldn't be here. We've currently drafted legislation to provide for an exception so that we can purchase the Catoosa adjoining property, the Oakley tract up in Cumberland County. We've had some preliminary meetings with legislators, and given that we've done this in the past, I think it's being well received. But we've still got a long ways to go because the General Assembly has just convened.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tarkington, as usual, you're say the best flag.
And I appreciate you doing that, Commissioner. Thank you. There is on your iPad, I believe, the same thing as what we're looking at up here. The first slide covers the boating fund, and I'm giving you the financial statement through the end of November. That's the last month that has closed by Finance Administration's records. The registration income for boating is $177,000 less than what was projected through that point in time. The expenses, percentage of expense to the budget for the year is approximately 27% of the allotment. The next slide is wildlife, and the license income is within 55,000 or 56,000 rather of the projected income through November. The expense percent to budget is 31%. The next slide identifies the Wetlands Acquisition Fund. There's approximately $17.6 million in it. And the next or last slide identifies the funds that are invested with the Treasury. And as you see at the bottom, the SPIF rate, that's the investment pool for the funds that aren't identified, or rather that are identified in the second column to the right, are currently earning 3.45%. Any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, I do.
Hank.
Sorry. On these treasury invested funds, the lifetime is listed as the first line item, so that will be moved into another fund. It won't be the SPIF. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the second on the boating registration income that was down, we had record sales of boats in Tennessee over the last few years. Does that mean people aren't registering theirs, or they're on a 3-year cycle and they're just fewer this year?
Could be a combination. Yeah. We look at the split is renewals and new boats, and basically both are down. So for some reason, they're not being renewed.
I'd say the economics of the way things are has a lot to do with that right now.
You see under wildlife, the $2 million loss, those funds are invested in bonds and they still paying the coupon, but the face value because of market conditions has dropped the principal. If we sold those bonds to get out of the market, $2.1 million. The way I understand it, we're still drawing whatever the rate is on the face value of original investment, but if we sold them, they'd be worth $34 million. I believe that's right. Is that right?
If we sold everything today, then there would be a loss, an actual loss of $2.1 million.
Right, but we're not going to do that today.
Right, if we hold them to maturity, then we get that value.
Right. At the bond rate, coupon rate.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, that concludes the budget.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. At this time, we've added the Legacy Award to today's agenda. So we're going to briefly, do we need a break first or are we okay? A quick break? All right. Moving on. All right, this is the Legacy Award, which was created by Commissioner Sanders a few years ago. And he wanted to recognize individuals that demonstrate a level of commitment to the hunting, fishing, and other outdoor lifestyles in Tennessee. So it's anticipated these people are not normally recognized, but it's not a requirement. So we'd like to honor these individuals. That's why he came up with the award. So it's a very exciting award. And we have, I believe, 4 nominees. We have Earl Bentz, Terry and Jane Lewis, Tony Sanders, and Anthony Landreth. And the chair takes a point of privilege in that she will hereby create an ad hoc committee for the review of nominees for Legacy Award. The committee will consist of Chairman Tommy Woods, Commissioner Hank Wright, and Commissioner Chris Devaney. These 3 people have not submitted a nomination for the recipient for the Legacy Award. Committee members, please review the materials relative to the nominees that you have make, and you can make a recommendation to the full commission for a vote tomorrow, January 13th. And I think we have some information submitted from the candidates. If you'd like to read each person that's selected or nominated the candidate, read a little background information on them. I'd like to start with, want to start with Jimmy Grimberry?
Are we supposed to submit something in writing or just now verbally?
We could submit the information in as far as their background to the whole commission, but I think it'd be good just to verbally for right now. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to talk a few minutes about Earl Bentz, who I nominated for this Legacy Award. Earl was a past chairman of this commission. He was instrumental during his term on the commission of introducing elk to East Tennessee. I've looked at photographs of his daughters opening the boxes and letting the elk out. He was also very instrumental in the introduction of Florida bass to Lake Chickamauga, which we know has been an enormous success in that area. Earl has been in the bass boat business his entire life. He started 3 different bass boat companies, which all still today are very popular in the world of bass boat fishing. Stratus was his first one, Triton, and most recently he runs the boat company called Camus Boats, all out of Tennessee, all manufactured in Ashton City. Earl's a 2004 recipient of the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. He was a founder of the foundation, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Foundation, and he's lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 4+ decades with his family. And I know very few people that have done more for wildlife and whatnot in this state than Earl, and I'm very proud to nominate him for this Legacy Award.
Thank you, Commissioner Granberry. Commissioner Butt?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I nominated Terry and Jane Lewis. Last fall, TWRA completed reconstruction of the Hatfield Knob Elk Viewing Tower on the North Cumberland WMA. The tower was named after Terry and Jane Lewis because of their exceptional work to make this come to fruition and the reality of that completion. They were instrumental in the establishment of the original viewing tower built in 2005. They designed and purchased materials for the first tower and were core leaders in planning the construction of the new one. For both towers, they were instrumental in coordinating local volunteers for support, including folks from the Campbell Outdoor Recreation Association, the Wildlife Federation, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Terry is also a longtime Wildlife Federation board member. The Lewises still help maintain the tower to this day, using their own equipment to plant and cultivate wildlife habitat and food plots. And at our elk tower ribbon cutting, they described the tower as a labor of love for them and said it's incredibly rewarding to see these amazing animals back on native Tennessee soil. I think Terry and Jane certainly deserve this nomination for the Legacy Award. for their dedication and for their involvement in the ongoing construction and success of the tower.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Butt. I nominated Anthony Landreth in Hardeman County, Tennessee. Anthony Landreth has been an avid sportsman since his father took him at age 4. He spent most of all of his free time since then, either in the woods or the water. He's a self-taught outdoorsman, and in deer management, he raised wild turkey, peacocks, and even sold peacocks to zoos all over the world. He has learned, his tutoring came from Mr. Dance. I helped him develop skills to become known as the crappie whisperer, averaging 3,500 to 4,000 catches a year. Is now passing his knowledge to many and many of his secrets about crappie fishing to lots of people, young and old. Anthony's friend Brad Deming had a dream. He always said, "What kid doesn't want a new bike for Christmas?" So they started hunting for kids in 2015. Brad Deming passed away later that year, and Anthony decided to keep the program going. He named it the Brad Deming Memorial Bicycle Fund, which is now a 501c3 charity. They've given away 2,163 bicycles to less fortunate children for Christmas in over 50 schools in 7 states, as well as foster care. He said the look on the children's faces when presented a brand new bicycle is life-changing. 90% of those funds are raised by auctioning, hunts, or fishing trips. The other 10% is through donations. He also does various guides and hunts and fishing trips for Hope Outdoors, which is a charity event for various disabilities, including para and quadriplegics, as also and most with other physical and mental impairments. Anthony also assists with TWRA in their annual youth fishing rodeos, as well as community fishing rodeos with hands-on teaching and films every one so people can share the cherished memory forever. He works closely with us. He has a weekly Facebook Live show with over 2 million viewers. He has a Tennessee Outside radio show he does every week. It's a really long list, so I won't go through all of them. He's attends various seminars with biologists, with TWRA coordinators that have been a welcome source for hunters and questions and concerns with CWD and how it is impacting the hunting landscape. I feel Anthony Landreth has demonstrated his dedication and conviction to the conservation and management of the outdoor community. He's proved a wealth of knowledge to hunters and non-hunters alike, encouraging young people and really people of all ages and abilities to get out into the woods and to the water. And I believe our other nominee was Tony Sanders, and you're presented by Brian McLaren, and you're going to.
Yeah, Brian McLaren gave me, Commissioner Brian McLaren gave me this letter to read. Tony Sanders' service to the, I'm going to not read the whole letter, by the way, I'm just going to read some of it. Tony Sanders' service to the outdoor community of the state of Tennessee dates back over 30 years. As head of education and outreach of Highland Sportsman's Club for over 30 years, he has been responsible for ensuring hunter education has been taught to thousands of youth in the tri-state area of southeastern Tennessee. Not only teaching hunter education, Tony spearheaded the development of youth activities in the area by coordinating with the NWTF for their annual Jakes program. Approximately 20 years ago, after a young girl was accidentally shot with a found firearm, Tony got involved with Friends of the NRA, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that raises money for youth. The main reason for the involvement was to help fund the Eddie Eagle program, which teaches youth that if they find a gun, to stop, don't touch, leave the area until an adult. Tony has since risen through the ranks and is now chairman of the Tennessee Friends of the NRA. In addition to these efforts, in 2007, seeing the need for positive information about hunting and firearms, Tony began broadcasting a live radio show called Tony Sanders Outdoors, providing outdoor information, education, and entertainment. His show has been won awards from Conservation Communicator of the Year, as well as Excellence in Craft Awards for various programs. Tony also served on this commission. The Legacy Award was developed to recognize people for their efforts in promoting hunting, fishing, and the outdoor lifestyle. All the nominated people have contributed to these efforts. Tony Sanders has demonstrated sustained contributions to the outdoor community and youth in general through his own efforts and helping others in their efforts of creating an outdoor community. Tony has contributed to the legacy of the outdoors. Brian McLaren nominates Tony Sanders for the Legacy Award.
Thank you, Commissioner Devaney. Well, that's some wonderful folks, and we're happy to honor each one of them is well deserving. So we appreciate all they do for the outdoors, and we'll look forward to the vote for tomorrow. Is there any other comments or suggestions, questions? Everybody asleep? Are we awake?
We can only pick one.
I know. You have to call Tony. That's his fault. That's hard. It's hard to pick one of those. So. Okay. Director, do you have any further comments?
I do not, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion for adjournment? Second? We're adjourned.